Hello, good evening, guys. We're here today for a late session today on my podcast, which is Carnival Muscle. I'm here today with Jareth Stubbington, who's an old friend of mine. We went to school together, and he was actually, I believe, the year below me. I just remember seeing him first and being like, how does that guy get such fucking ripped abs? Then how does he have such big calves? And why is his bicep so defined? And I was like, what the fuck's going on here? And because when I came to the same school as Jareth, I was like the most muscular kid in my school. And I was like, who's this kid? And he is fast as well, so I was really pissed off. But yeah, how's it going?
Mate, so good. It's so nice to see you again. Honestly, like when you're just talking about that, about where we started, where it all began, sort of thing. Like, because when you came in, I thought exactly the same thing. I was like, hold on a minute. I'm used to being like the biggest young one in the gym. Like, who is this guy? Like, he's like shoulders like galore. Like, oh, mate, it's so funny. So funny. And that was the classic days. Like, that was where it all began, wasn't it? We were what, 14, 15?
14, 15, and we're all sort of training in the gym at lunchtime and in between our breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I remember used to just have my snacks, like protein powder and peanut butter and whatnot, like in the gym locker room, that stinky locker room.
Oh,
and having like plates full on my head because they didn't have any collars on the end of the barbells, you know.
Nothing. It was, do you know what? As a school gym goes, though, like the raw basics that place had. Do you remember they had the old little twist-on plates?
Those ones,
really
yeah.
cheap dumbbells. They're whacking the fives on, and it's so good. But this is the thing, isn't it? Like we were just talking a second ago before we went live, how like the fact that we started that young and we're still going now, that's why like we've built up what we've done. Like we've taken our time with it, sort of thing. And you know, going from the start, like I was saying again about the teachers coming in and telling us like, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you need to deeper in your reps, contractions, all that sort of stuff. Like it was all really, really good knowledge, which now is so nice we can pass on to people. And it's such a shame that there's so many younger generation that are almost like, don't go to the gym until you're 16 and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, completely agree. There's like ideas now about like it stunting your growth and, you know, it takes over your life. I'm like, oh, I achieved a bachelor's degree in human nutrition whilst bodybuilding and winning a major national show.
Yeah.
So you tell me that it takes over my life. Saying that, I guess when you're a bit autistic sort of thing and you sort of, you know, approach all your passions with a lot of oomph and like force, you know, you tend to just achieve stuff. I know you, Jareth, we're speaking before about like some of your issues maybe with like ADHD and things like that. How has that come into it of you being a PT and stuff?
So the thing is, mate, my energy, like I just love it. Like I just live for this sort of stuff. Like being able to like put my like energy around people and allowing them to sort of love what they do as well. For me, it's just the best thing ever. Like I've never been diagnosed with ADHD. Pretty much everyone says it to me because I have way too much energy all the time. I'm always glass half full. I will never, ever let anyone think anything less. And whenever they're defeated on a hard day or a hard week, I'll always be the person to sit down next to them, especially just before we're about to do our session and be like, look, just talk to me. Like, get it out. Like, let's go. Let's build the endorphins up. Let's train. Let's have a good session. Like the gym, especially personally to me, when I was younger, like it built me as a person. It gave me, it's weird to say, but almost like a bit of an identity. Like I started off, all I wanted was abs. It's all I cared about. I used to do hundreds and hundreds of sit-ups every single day. It's all I used to care about. I wanted to be the first kid in the school to have absolutely shredded abs. And then I built up. And now when people come to me and they're like, I just want to lose a bit of weight, or I just want to look better, I'm like, work on this will happen, sort of thing. Focus on your consistency, focus on enjoying what you're doing, and everything else falls in place. And with the ADHD side of it, like I feel like it's just given me that focus, because normally people get super distracted or they got too much stuff going on in their brain. Gym is like my time. It's just everything, nothing else matters. And it's the same process now, like to everyone else. Like it's their time. It's your time to forget about the world, to forget about work. Just focus on you for an hour or 2 hours or however long you're in there for. And that's what I mean. And you just build it up from there. And it's a great thing to be able to, I would say, have a bit of ADHD because, it's just fills the room with energy.
Yeah, I agree. I always feel more energetic speaking to you. My brother's said the same thing to me recently about some of his friends. Like, he's got some friends, Josh and Jordan. Like, they're never on a downer. They always bring you up, and it's It's such a great benefit, honestly. So I think for every one of us out there, it's like me. There's a Jareth as well, so in opposition. So it's
But
good
this
that
is the
it's an even
thing.
balance.
So,
Yeah,
mate, like, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, you just gotta find someone who will lift you up. All those people which, like, not put you down, but like, don't believe you can do it. Don't allow you to do it. They don't tell you you're doing a good job, or push them away. You don't need that.
yeah, I agree. It all comes from your mentality, and I think that's the main thing at the start of all this. Like, I came to the gym thinking I was a bit chubby. I didn't really have much muscle, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do an hour of cardio every day with my brother down the gym. Do some sit-ups, do some pull-ups. Oh, I'm building some muscle now. Okay, I'm going to do some dumbbell stuff. Then use the Foundry gym in New Milton Leisure Centre, like the better, bigger side. Remember that
Like
one.
it.
So yeah, from there it's like I've kind of identified my why, but now it's a bit different. It's more for the love of training, which I think
Yeah,
we kind of touched this before. Like when people tried to like ask the questions, oh, do I need to take steroids? Do I need to have this protein powder, this, that, and the other? I think when it comes down to it, it's like, well, how much do you love it, and are you willing to put your desires for like immediate win aside and just accept, well, I actually enjoy doing this.
yeah.
The benefit will come. It just takes time. But Jareth,
And
how
that
long have you been
is,
training now?
wow, since, like I think we said, since 14, maybe 15. So my career started off in the gym as a sprinter. So I basically pulled out of that and then just fell into the gym at 14, kept going. And yeah, so it's been what, 12, 13 years now? No, yeah, 13 years. Jesus, that's a long old time. And I've never taken gear. I've never touched stuff like that. I've always stuck to supplements. I have a couple of questions which people ask about what I take. So from creatine to whey protein, I take a herb or a plant called Tonka Ali. And that's pretty much it. And then a multivitamin pretty much every single day. And the thing is with the steroids is like, I've always thought about it. It's always been there. It's always been an option. But I always wanted to like prove to myself you can do it without. And as you're saying, you can. It just takes 14 years.
Yeah, I mean, Jareth had a tremendous physique at his young age when we were competing. So I'm going to put a little picture up on the screen now.
No. Yeah. You got it.
So I've got it.
Oh, mate.
If I can work it out to the, okay, there we go.
First ever competition. Jono got me
So,
to go out there. That's Big J.
that's me.
You, my boy.
I had hair.
You had hair.
That's,
you had
that's
pecs for
Jareth.
days.
He still had hair, and he had hair back then.
Mate, that's that's Iron Tribe next to you. James.
James, yeah, he does physio, I think, and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's over at Primitive now.
That's right. Yeah,
I
never see
believe
this
it.
guy again though. Do you remember this guy's like calves and thighs?
Is it Marius?
Something like that. Mario or Marius. Yeah.
Yeah, mate, that is wow. And then there's skinny old me on the left.
You look pretty good. You look quite excited to be there.
Do you know what? Like, as I was saying just a minute ago, I put 110% into everything. Like, from my gym sessions to my client sessions to everything I do. Like, and even that was so much fun. And it was like, I know back then it was more about having aesthetic shape, probably trying to get sponsored, living the bodybuilding lifestyle. I love that. I love how you found it. I don't know what it was for you. Is that why you started?
I think I started bodybuilding because, do you remember there was this lad called Mark Young?
Not off the top of my head.
No.
But...
So he's about a year older than me. And anyway, he is competing, getting ready for shows, getting ripped. I was like, Christ, this guy looks good. Yeah. But I'm actually more muscular than him. So why don't I try it? So I kind of had that idea in my head, oh, he can do it, so I can do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got stuck in and I was like, okay, I built some muscle, look much better now. Okay. Then I was like getting better and better and better. And I was like starting to exceed everyone in the gym.
Yep.
To each point, all the PE teachers at our school were like, oh, you take gear, don't you? And I'm like, no, what do you mean gear? Like, is that like a fishing kit or something? I didn't know what it was. I remember them saying it was, I didn't even know what it was till I was about 17 or 18, like leaving sixth form sort of thing. Yeah. But yeah, sort of, I did quite well considering all that's happened. I had injuries and stuff. Definitely. But, you know, I've kind of learned my way around it, so I can still train pretty hard and do other stuff that I quite enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And then now... It's part of the problem. It's the not applying that longevity side of bodybuilding. You know, like we said earlier about, you know, expecting results now. It's like, well, yeah, you can put 7 plates in a hack squat and squat it really fast and bounce to the bottom and eventually destroy your spine. Or you could achieve the same muscular mass just by training properly. You know, so I'm all about longevity. And so like my slogan for my channel motto is like aligning physique goals with positive health outcomes. So that's what I'm striving to achieve. But yeah, what's your business like at the moment with your PTing and that? Is it busy or?
It's so good. Like basically, so personally, I'm trying to move more online because it's just a more of an outreach. Like with my knowledge and my attitude, I feel like I can really build a lot of people up. At the minute, it's mainly in person and online. So a lot of local people. And I love it. Like you get that one-to-one connection with someone, and then you're also doing the online as well with them. So you're building up this like huge profile, if that makes sense. It works really, really well. Couple people that I have just online as well. It's a similar sort of thing, and I love it because you do have a lot of personality there. We do video chats every single week to be able to make sure they're okay and all that. And yeah, I've been doing that now for about 1.5 years because before I had to stop doing PT because I was doing carpentry, needed money, moved out of house, all that sort of stuff. So I've come back into the industry, but I never stopped training, and it was always something I loved. It was always me. You know, it's always been you as well. Like, you know, we were born and bred in that Highcliffe school gym. and then straight on to Two Rivers Me. And a lot of the people who were at Two Rivers Me, our local gym, are now come over to Snap where I am now. And yeah, it's just the community vibe is incredible. And I love it. It's the best thing. Don't get me wrong, like I love doing in person. I love being able to just have that connection with people. But as online goes, it's just like there's just a broader amount of people, and I want to be able to try and outreach that. So that's my next step.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it. I mean, I don't PT anyone in person. I give people advice here and there, but I don't like consult or anything.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is my main knowledge base is about nutrition. That's what I studied, got my degree in.
Yeah.
But I get so many questions about training because I think people see me train and they're like, well, he doesn't train like everyone else, but he looks like that. So some thinks he doesn't grunt when he trains. He doesn't shake everywhere. He just does what needs to be done. I think it's quite unique to people because you always have this idea of like Dorian Yates, Branch Warren, Ronnie Coleman in the back of your head, just throwing at weights and all this sort of shit. There's me just lifting very calmly, but just applying that force, you know. So
do you
I've
never
had a different experience.
go for it? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're always about your contractions. You're always about feeling the muscle, movement, making sure that you're in the right sort of area, sort of thing, while you're doing everything. Like, there's no like, let's just go set sort of thing, or I'm hitting this hard sort of thing. Like, I just gotta push this as hard as I can. If I make a grunt, if I make a growl, if I'm gurning like anything, like that, you never really do that.
Yeah, so I don't make any sounds when I train unless I can't breathe. So if it's like a chest supported row where your lungs are compressed, I can't really breathe for that last rep sort of thing. So I might make but it won't be much of a sound. It's not like everyone else's. But I still train to at least technical muscular failure. So at least until the point when my form starts to break down. But most movements nowadays, I'm training probably to eccentric failure. So that's where you know, you can't push it any harder, you can't hold it any longer, and you can't lower it any slower. So a lot of my sets take the moment about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes to complete. So imagine for like a lot of you guys, that'd be like a triple drop set, but I'm doing that all in one set. So I'm holding it right at the end, until I can no longer hold it, and my legs are shaking, leg extension, then I just lower it. But you're messed up after that one set. So I just train like 6 to 10 sets now, 3-4 times a week. Nice. And that works, but I don't do warm-ups. The warm-ups built into my workouts. In that, if you lift safely from the get-go, there's not a risk. When you're, of course, doing longer time of detention, you're not going to be using massive weights, so the risk of injury is a bit less. But you just control that weight, and just because it's lightweight doesn't mean it's a lightweight. You know, Ronnie Coleman was doing a lightweight with like 20, 30 reps. So,
and this is it, isn't it? So many people worry so much about the size of the dumbbell that they have in their hands or the amount of plates they're using. And it's just, it doesn't work. You're swinging. You're not using the actual muscle you're trying to work. You're not contracting properly. You're not moving properly. There's so many, like, I love to see people go absolutely ham and hit a heavy 1 rep max and all that sort of stuff, like massive energy, massive, like, go for it. But at the same time, you're like, when you're working all your accessory muscles, you need to make sure that they're being fully used, full extension, everything like that, full contraction, so on, because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, I get you on that one. Should we go a little bit into some of our topics today? Then we can touch on like training or anything extra you've got. Of course, any questions you've got from your following or clientele. So I think the first thing I wanted to talk about was the calories in, calories out thing. So I know, like yourself, perhaps me as well, when I first started years ago, I was taught like calories in, calories out. So eat less, move more. That's how you get ripped. But we've kind of seen, I don't know if you've had the same experience as me, but we've kind of seen it doesn't really work that well, at least long term. What do you think about that?
So it's quite funny, actually, because personally, I base a lot of my nutrition guidance off that demographic because it's simple. It's easy for people to understand, including myself, to be able to give that to people. If I say to someone, here's 2,000 calories, okay? Let's have a look at what you're burning throughout the day, through the Fitbits, through the MyZones, whatever. And then you know where your levels are at. Progression-wise, I won't lie, I've seen progression through it. So I want to understand this more from your point of view and what you're saying about it, because really, really interesting.
Yeah, so when someone comes to you and they sort of say, calories in, calories out doesn't really work, I think they look at it from the angle that I'm saying, oh, you can get away with eating loads of food and not get fat. That's not what I'm saying. I still want people to misunderstand this. I'm saying effectively, if you theoretically consumed 20 labeled food calories a day and did that for a month, you would lose weight. I'm not denying that. But my problem isn't that kind of methodology in terms of like eating less and losing more weight. My problem is the measurement itself. So do you know how calories are defined?
For your macros.
Okay, but what is a calorie?
It's what's it, a thing of energy.
You got it.
Unit of energy. There you go.
Yeah, so it's a unit of heat energy that is from the amount of thermic effect or heat that is produced from 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius above standard room or ambient temperature. So the measurement is defined as a unit of heat. So I know it's kind of like a misnomer kind of thing in that kind of way, or a misunderstanding, but a calorie isn't like food. Like, we don't eat calories. It's a measurement of heat from food that's burnt or oxidized in a chamber, which is closed. So think your body right now, Jeff, as you're sat there, you're breathing out CO2, you're breathing in oxygen. You might be sweating a bit, your metabolism's working, it takes digestive enzymes and processes to break down protein, a lot less for carbs and a tiny amount for fat. So you kind of know this, that your body does stuff to deal with the food calories, if that makes sense. So my problem is basically that if we had 2,000 calories, yes, it's a measure, assuming we ate all the same foods. And have the same food day in, day out. So the same measurements of like whole foods, basically. We'd find that we can begin to kind of track a chart and say, okay, we've decreased our fat mass, gain mass, muscle mass, whatever. The issue is it almost gives people a reason to justify if it fits your calories. So they can say, okay, well, I'm not going to hit 150 grams of protein today. I'm going to hit 50, but I'm going to eat an extra 100 grams of carbs, and that's going to be in the form of Skittles or Rice Krispies. So my problem is that people will switch that, and I think it's a low standard of measurement. Does that make sense to you? So I'm kind of saying, yes, it kind of works broadly because you can measure something in some way. But it has its limitations. So as soon as someone changes that food, so they go from eating salmon to chicken breast, that thermic effect from food will change the calories in it, or the unit of energy that is taken in.
Because of the type of food that it is.
Yeah, so the amount of fat, protein, or carbohydrate by ratio that it is. So if the diet was 2,000 calories of all protein,
Yeah.
assuming that was what the food label said,
Mm.
then that's going to have a different body composition effect on yourself than 2,000 grams of fat or sugar.
Yeah.
So my issue is basically that. So it's quite a weak methodology, but I propose something that's a bit better.
Okay.
So basically, there's been a research. I can't remember his name, but this is like public information that anyone can access. I think his name was like Francisco or Francesco, but he's a gentleman, I believe, from Spain or Portugal.
Okay.
And he put together a load of papers,
Yeah.
and he sort of worked out how well those papers were at predicting body composition outcomes, assuming people stuck to that dietary amount. So, the group A took, I don't know, however many people on loads of different studies, 1,500 calories per day, followed them for 6 weeks. This is what happened to body weight.
Mm-hmm.
And what he found was when he tracked those calories versus their body weight, assuming a calorie was 3,500 calories, a pound of fat is 3,500 calories, they found that it was quite inconsistent.
Okay.
So that says that the calorie measurement doesn't really work,
Okay.
at least for a lot of people. Now, what I'm proposing is something called the mass balance model, which is effectively macro counting. So, of course, it takes another level or layer of skill to work that out. You're looking at 3 numbers on a chart versus 1.
Yeah.
But I think by the time you've looked at 1 which is accurate, you might as well look at the 3 that are accurate.
Yeah.
So what this research basically found all the studies on the mass balance model, which is macro counting, put it up against the energy balance theory. And they found that the trend line in terms of predicting body composition outcomes was much better calculating macros.
Okay.
So do you see what I mean? So the macros versus calories is a better measurement in that case.
Yeah. So like in one bracket, if you say to someone, go eat 2,000 calories, it doesn't matter what it is, just 2,000 calories, scan everything, whatever it is, go eat that, will be a lot less effective than understanding how much fat's going in, how much protein, and how many carbs. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. But the other issue I have with the calorie counting thing is how it's promoted. So we've all been to the supermarket and we can find a small protein bar, a packet of crisps, a sandwich or whatever. It'll say, whatever it is, will say under 100 calories.
Yeah.
And people see that and it's like what they call I can't remember what it's called. It's something like a food angel or a food halo. So a halo word is a word which can describe something as good, high protein, high fiber, good for the gut, 5 a day, anything which is related to health and body composition outcomes and nutrition, food, basically.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So it promotes the unhealthy relationship with food.
Yeah.
Now, also, calories are more often used because it's a summative number of the composition of lots of small foods within a processed food. So think your average grenade or protein bar. You're looking at humectant, glycerol, maybe cocoa powder, sugar, maybe, I don't know, whey, milk protein, all these different ingredients. When they're put together, they have a different effect on your body hormonally than, for example, if you ate that same macro count, but from salmon, I don't know, a potato, and some olive oil or something. That will do something differently to your hormones in your body because of the level of processing. So when you process different foods, therefore the calorie intake, assuming that was correct, is invalid because it doesn't match up. Now, obviously, people like yourself that are going to be making people diet plans, you're going to say, eat whole foods, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people will see that calorie number and use that as their default, and they assume it means the same thing.
Yeah.
So my main thing is getting people to understand like whole foods are better, and use a better calculation, and it's going to be more accurate. And what we know, like about a beef steak, for example, like say you go to the supermarket, you get ribeye steak. Well, that's going to be pretty consistent, assuming you buy a 200-gram ribeye steak in terms of like protein and fat. Now, with processed foods, that could be anything. So food legislation in this country and a lot of other Western countries allows for up to a 20% deviation, plus or minus, on the labeled food calorie amounts. So your average 100-gram, I don't know, packet of Doritos could be 400 calories, or it could be like, I don't know, 600 calories or whatever happens to be.
Wow.
Do you see what I mean? So they can legally do that and not have any kind of issue saying it's a lower amount when it's not.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why, processed foods and calorie counting isn't very effective.
Well, we understand why people eat processed foods, don't we? Because it's easier.
It's hyper palatable. It's designed to be overconsumed. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, it's marketed to be sold as a, this is your protein for the day. Here you go, all in that little bar right there. Or you have to go home, cook a steak, probably make your veggies, put a little bit of rice on the side. You've got the same thing in a much better, but it takes an hour to make, potentially, maybe half an hour. I think that's the problem, isn't it? We as humans these days, busy people don't relatively have the time. I know the clientele I work with definitely don't have the time. When I'm offering people like advice and I'm saying like, right, potentially have this for lunch, have that for lunch, they're like, I don't have time to make it, Jareth. So I actually go with a lot of liquid with a lot of people because I find that just blending stuff up, throwing it together, like when you know what's going in, works really well. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think, well, if we look at studies from different dietary interventions where they've added in a liquid diet or at least predominantly liquid diet, they find people do lose weight. And that's even with apparent calorie equated kind of intakes.
Yeah.
They find that the amount of weight they lose seems to be more, which makes me wonder, how much of that nutrition are you taking in? And sometimes these foods, if they're broken down too much or too processed, they begin to develop compounds in them which are damaging to the gut wall. So eventually it means when you start to reintroduce these things, you'll notice you'll have issues because your enzymatic kind of processes aren't regulated or upregulated to that point yet.
Yeah.
So that's one of the issues of a lot of blended foods. Now, to say that, like if someone's only way to get in their nutrition, assuming it's good food, is that way, I'd actually reassess your whole life. Because I think nutrition is a cornerstone of health, or one of them. Do you see what I mean? So if you're ignoring good nutrition, which is foundational, and you're saying, I can't do it, I'm too busy, I need to have a milkshake or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, find an extra half an hour in your life. I mean, I can honestly say I spend less than half an hour cooking every single day. And I eat, at the moment, 2 meals, but usually 3 or 4 meals a day.
Do you have kids?
My partner has 2 children. We somehow manage. And she manages as well.
So this is the thing, like, obviously you personally are very used to understanding what you need and how to fit it into your life. Where someone who's 40 years old, who's been doing the same thing for 40 years, has never been able to do that, exactly what you're doing right there. So switching their life like that, impossible. It's the right thing to do. But personally, I find there's just no way. I always say to someone, change one meal of the whole week. And then when you're a couple of weeks in, change 2 meals. Like, it's a super slow process. And sadly, people do fall off after 2 or 3 months. But once you're consistently telling them, just bit by bit by bit. And I find a lot of people try so hard to just like that. Yeah, I'm going to change every single meal. I'm going to eat chicken and steak every single night. And then the kids are in the background going, I don't want chicken. I want pizza. It's so hard. And again, like, I totally see where you're coming from. I'm just sort of trying to think of it from a more lifestyle, that where people,
consumer kind of.
Yeah. And that's why people go and get the ready meals. Like, I want to ask your opinion on like the My Protein ready meals and stuff. Like, have you got any thoughts on that?
Yes, I've seen them sold in some supermarkets, and I think in Iceland now.
Yeah.
They're not the worst thing to have. I just think in all of them there's a lack of animal fat, which is where you're going to get your fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K.
Yep.
I think that sometimes these things have a lot of what we in the carnivore community call anti-nutrients. So what we typically believe is average customer, layperson aren't training nutrition. We think, you eat spinach, which has vitamin C, potassium, vitamin A, whatever. We eat, I don't know, eggs, it has protein, cholesterol, things like that, so vitamins. We think, okay, we can make a spinach egg omelette, fine. It doesn't mean nutrition plus nutrition equals them together,
Mm.
there's actually less nutrition in that mixed meal because it has anti-nutrients in it from the spinach. So do you see what I'm saying? So there's actually compounds within a lot of vegetable foods which are deleterious to our gut wall and kind of prevent the absorption of a lot of vitamins and minerals that we're taking from the food otherwise.
Okay.
So the average person doesn't know about that. So you'll see in a lot of magazines, okay, have a spinach kale smoothie. Well, kale was a byproduct of what they used to feed cows back in the day, but even they didn't want it, so they started serving it to us. And kale was disgusting, guys. I don't know why anyone would want to eat that. And the same thing with
everyone hates kale.
and it's the beloved almond butter and nut butters that people have.
Mm.
They're one of the most toxic foods known to man. You know about omega-3 and omega-6, don't you? Like your fat, good fats. So omega-3 is the only essential fatty acid that we need.
Yeah.
So from omega-3, we can basically manufacture omega-6, omega-9, omega-7 for other things down the line if we need to, if our body requires us to do that.
Mm.
But the issue with nut butters is the ratio of omega-3 to 6 is piss poor. So for every 1 gram of omega-3 you might get from peanut butter, it might be 30, 40, 50, 60 times more omega-6.
Yeah.
And what we know from our ancestral background is that people have typically contributed a diet with, it's believed, around 1-to-1 or 1-to-4 in terms of grams of omega-3 to omega-6.
Yeah.
And those people didn't have disease of inflammation. They didn't have a lot of the issues associated with high concentration of omega-6 stored in the body. So the fat that we take in is what stores in our body and is what makes us who we are. So people need to consider this when they're taking in their nut butters and things like that. So omega-6 is needed to regulate inflammation. But long term, if our cells are saturated full of it, it means omega-3 can't do the work.
Yeah.
So that's when we have issues. Now, you can't counteract this with a few omega-3 pills each day. It's better just to not eat it. That's what I'm kind of getting at. So I think a lot of people have issues with inflammation because, too much sugar, too much processed food, and too much plant fats, which are high in omega-6.
So you're saying omega-3 counteracts the inflammation?
Yeah, so omega-3 seems to have benefits on the gut wall, which is, I keep mentioning this because it's important.
Yeah.
People think, oh, if you want a good gut, you have your glutamine drink in the morning with your greens drink and this and that. That's one of the worst things you could have for your gut because it alkalizes your gut, or at least it makes it more difficult for your body to maintain a pH of 1.5 to 2.
Yeah.
So anytime you challenge your body's natural system, it has to do work, which is always going to be a stress to the body. So yeah, not much of a fan of these sort of things. And omega-3, I mean, for a lot of people, I think they'd see a benefit if they got maybe 2 grams of omega-3 for their diet each day. So 2 grams total. So that's not like flaxseed, that's not linseed. It's pure omega-3 in animal fat form.
Yeah.
So it's not, I think it's like linoleic acid. It's not linoleic acid. Has to be EPA and DHA basically.
Okay.
So if they did that, got rid of the processed food, got rid of the nut butters, they'd see a benefit in terms of their inflammation, I think.
So what you're saying is what would you advise as, like, you're saying don't have it first thing because of, what it can do to your gut lining. What would you recommend as an alternative?
Honestly, nothing. The thing is, as a nutritionist, I'm obliged to tell people the truth.
Yeah.
Get people results, get people on the right track in terms of their health outcomes.
Yep.
Now, I've never met someone in my life ever that's appeared, and seems healthy that eats spinach and kale and all these smoothies. We aren't designed to deal with these high fiber foods. We don't have, we have what's called a vestigial organ, which I believe is our cecum, I think. It could be the appendix, I can't remember. But basically, it's an organ we have, which we used to use, but no longer really functions that well. And that's how we'd be able to digest some plant matter in the form of fiber.
Yep.
But we no longer produce the enzymes with that, so no cellulase to break down fiber. So therefore, it goes for our gut, but prevents the absorption of other vitamins and minerals, and doesn't serve any purpose to us, which is something people wouldn't really thought about. They think high fiber is good, but there's no scientific literature out there right now that exists
Yeah.
I'll challenge anyone that's listening to this to find it, because there isn't any. That says fiber is good for you.
Okay.
So no cause and effect. So person A, person B, fiber, no fiber. The only study we do have is on, I believe it is with patients that had Crohn's disease. So they had a lock-in metabolic ward study lab thing. They're given the food to eat. I think they had varying degrees of fiber, so 0 grams up to like 40 grams. And they found the closer to 0 grams the patients got, the less symptoms or digestive distress all the patients had.
So hold on, can I just repeat that quickly, because I know people with Crohn's. You're saying reduce your fiber intake to reduce your symptoms.
Correct. So as close to 0 grams as physically possible.
Wow, that's crazy.
Now the only issue with that is, although we don't require fiber, it is useful for some people as it has some short chain fatty acids, which is in the breakdown process of some fibrous material that we can seem to get into. But we can also get short chain fatty acids from animal fats.
Okay.
So if you get rid of the fiber, you have to add in the animal fat. So that's your butter, ghee, tallow, lard, fatty beef, salmon, things like that.
Yeah.
So every kind of dietary intervention that I might mention to you has to be counteracted with something else. There aren't many things where you can just change it overnight. And every time you change your diet, you'll get some kind of negative feedback response, because your gut microbiome kind of reevaluates itself over a 3 weeks period.
Okay.
So everything you do for the previous 3 weeks up until this moment right now is what the colonies in your gut is formed of, if that makes sense. So the next 3 weeks. So that's what being consistent with your diet is important. So if you're going to say, I'm going to have a pizza once a month, that's going to wreck you every time. You're probably better off halving the pizza than having it twice a month. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what again, like when you're going in about microbiomes, gut linings, all this sort of stuff, like this is way beyond what I know. I've listened to podcasts about it and stuff like that, how like gut microbiomes can, depending on your diet, can actually affect your own brain, basically, your psychological state and so on. Like inflammation of the gut microbiome and so on, or the gut. It can cause so many different problems. But when it comes to it, like the gut microbiome itself, like what specifically is that?
So they're talking about the bacteria that form in what they call colonies in your gut lining, which has, I think they call it like an endothelial cell wall.
Yeah.
So you think within your gut, so your entire digestive system really will have different levels of bacteria in it.
Yeah.
Different bacteria cooperate with each other, function best in certain levels of pH. So when you put the wrong food in, which aggravates your pH within your body for a temporary period of time, that'll then make you more susceptible to illness, reduce your immune function, things like that. So effectively what it is you have all these bacteria, all these different types. So it's not just Acidophilus, there's probably millions and billions of types. I think you hold about 3 trillion in your body any one given time, something like that. So it's an absurd amount.
Yeah.
The thing is, some of them will be able to overpopulate others. So if that happens, you just want to make sure it's a healthy strain. So that's how there's instances where people can get E. coli and things like that. So it takes over the immune system. So the idea is you want to have a diverse immune system. But one of the issues that people don't really consider is for every diverse food that you take in your diet, it will also have a negative impact. So it goes back to like the thing earlier about anti-nutrients, reducing mineral absorption, leaky gut, things like that, gut permeability. So every assessment you make in your diet intervention has to be specific and exact. So you don't change things overnight, and that's one of the biggest issues. But one of the other problems with gut microbiome and probiotics is the probiotics only work as long as you take them. Now, assuming there's no dietary intervention which allows that colony to reformulate, sort of colonize, basically, that colony will begin to fall off. So taking probiotic supplements is either take it forever or just fix your gut kind of situation.
Now that's the big question, isn't it? How do you get that gut to the right state over a period of time? Is this where the carnivore diet comes in?
Usually, yeah. So at first people will have some kind of digestive distress because you go from taking in certain foods, your body learns how to deal with that with different enzymes. then that starts to change. So you always transition slowly. So someone listening to this shouldn't just change overnight.
Yeah.
I'd say for most people between 4 and 8 weeks. If you don't eat too much vegetable plant matter and you're fit, you could do that in 4 weeks quite handily. But a lot of people will see that there's a performance drop off. So in which case you need to increase the fat. So a lot of people have issues with transitioning, but then just eating chicken breast and say, I don't have no energy. Of course you don't. You're eating the same diet. You're just not eating any carbohydrates and any fat.
Yeah.
So the fat has to really creep up to match that kind of carbohydrate intake in terms of like the energy status it might have. So the carnivore diet as well is, it's believed that you have a limited food choice, therefore your gut microbiome is less diverse. But diversity is only talking about a gut that is of the average person.
Yeah.
So you could have your diet, which isn't carnivorous, and one of your clients' diets, but your gut microbiome would form differently. And what you feel better with versus them could be completely different because of individual differences. Your lifestyle, if you're outside a lot, if you're touching the ground a lot, touching dirt, if you're not as clean, that will have an impact on your gut microbiome.
Yeah.
So the idea is to just keep yourself in a relatively stable state in where you're not traveling too much, you're just in your own local area, do your own thing, keep a good routine. And that's why people always get ill when they go abroad. And it's because their gut microbiome changes and the water quality is pretty shit. So
what about the build-up of antibodies against against these sort of infections? So personally, I found that I was a kid who used to eat dirt. I was the one who used to run around and I go trambling in muddy rivers and all that sort of stuff. Personally, I feel I'm very resistant. Like, is that just because that's me, or could that be anyone? Like, when you're building up a resistance, you're saying like keep it very strict, and I totally respect that. But at the same time, if you're building up no resistance to anything, like surely then you're allowing anything to potentially, affect your microbiome.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So the idea is to be consistent, but only within the realms of what you know you have to achieve each day. So for me, if I know I'm going to go for a short walk with my dog through the river behind me in the woods, I know I'm going to cycle to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym, use all the equipment there, touch all the stuff, probably sweat a lot, whatever, come back home, lie in bed. Okay, fine. So that's my normal. Now, something which is a hindrance to that normal or a change, for example, staying at my brother's house, which might happen once a month or so, not a bad thing, but it means my gut microbiome is going to change to that. Okay. Now, the bigger that change is, or the more diverse it is in comparison to what you're used to, the more likely you are to become ill.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm just saying not to avoid going outside and doing things, just try and have that sort of momentum where you keep doing the same sort of thing. And that's what your gut microbiome is going to take on. I think for most people, I mean, I don't change much at all with anything I do. I guess if an average person, like if a person, you go on.
Right, sorry. So the people you coach, the people you teach about this sort of diet, they do exactly the same thing. Is that right? You try to guide them to keep a processed life, if that makes sense, or is that like more of an autistic thing?
Good question. I think a bit of both. So my clients tend to be people that work 9 to 5, tend to go to the gym a few times a week. Maybe have children, maybe don't. A lot of the time they don't have too much family around because they're usually a little bit older. In that kind of case, they live the same sort of life. They go to the office, go to work, go to wherever they work, the building site, and have the same sort of life each day. But I think it's just a risk we always take when we go somewhere new. Like the likelihood of me being ill right now, right here, doing what I do in my day-to-day activities versus going to, I don't know, say Kenya, different environment, different food, different bacteria. Well, it's a stark difference. I'm likely to come ill, but if I have to do that, I have to do that. It's just, we're not built to be that adaptive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like me seeing you after not seeing you for quite a long time. That's not going to kill me because we're from the same area, relatively speaking. Do you see what I mean? So then if I knew, say you moved to Australia for 10 years, that might be a different scenario, So
I guess like I see where you're coming from. it's one of the, it's I think it's one of those things where like I'm just sort of trying to think it from like a lifestyle perspective. If you're saying like people need to be this strict on their diet and this strict on their life, like personally, I don't see how that's doable.
I see what you mean. Yeah, there's going to be always be objections to it.
Yeah.
But what you usually do is, well, what I usually do is give people alternatives. So I say, okay, if you're following, in 99% of cases, if you're following a carnivore diet, you have about 5 to 10 foods you could probably eat in any given day. Fine. They're quite happy doing that. They do that mainly for health reasons, so their motivation's a little bit different. Now, with my training, I give people a little bit of leeway, but training in itself, once you get to a certain level, it's fun, but you kind of want to progress more. So you end up having to pull more levers to achieve more things. So when I first started, like you, I probably just went to the gym, or 5 sets of this, 5 sets of that. Don't know how many reps, just get quite a few out. Do some arms, do some abs, became done. But now my workout's completely different, so they're more specifized. So as I become more advanced, I become more specified. So as my clients become more advanced, they specify better. Until they get to the point eventually where they can do what I call just intuitive eating. So you know roughly what their portions are. I just say, just carry on as you're doing. They just check in with me. I just say to them, oh, you need to rein it back a bit. What are your symptoms? How do you feel? Because a lot of people I work with have at least 2 autoimmune diseases. So people that aren't often very well. So for them, being that regimented, like I said, is a much easier option if it allows them to live a bit better. But then for your clients, perhaps a bit younger than mine, different situation. You know, maybe they need to just look at calories. Maybe they just need to, well, I still wouldn't say eat the fiber, to be honest, but you know.
So it's steer clear of the fiber when you're not as well, potentially don't have autoimmune diseases, potentially aren't ill, or you've tried other diets that are not working. What you're saying is, if you're strict on your diet and you're strict on your lifestyle, your gut microbiome can heal, it can process things better, and you will become physically healthier. However, for someone who isn't potentially unwell or isn't struggling with like their normal diet, they should focus more on like the macros and what's going into their body. Keep it whole foods, keep it, you know, like fresh as possible, sort of thing. Is that sort of how we're separating this?
That's exactly it. Yeah, you've explained that well. So it's all about pulling levers as you need to pull them.
Yeah.
But not pulling them all at once. So if your client came to me and just wanted a bit of help, I'd say, okay, what's wrong with your diet? Okay. Well, after I drink milk, I usually feel a bit congested and I feel sick that night. Okay, stop drinking milk. There's one lever. Okay, does that work or doesn't it work? No, it doesn't work. Okay, what else do you eat? You know, so you sort of dig a bit deeper.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I work with people. So the people I start with initially, they're always, I always try to get them to a baseline diet first. So I try to work out how much food they need overall.
Yep.
And as long as they adhere to it, I can work out, well, if they've lost 5 pounds this week, whoops, I've made a misjudgment. I'll increase their food a bit, but that won't hurt them. You know, we've learned something, so we can progress from that. So that's kind of how I go about it.
I really want to know what, like, okay, I want to know what you would prescribe to someone who needs this stricter diet. I would honestly, yeah. In fact, yeah, I want to know.
Yeah. So would you mean like a macro amount or?
Let's do it for me. Do it for me. Okay. I'm 95 kilos. I'm 5'9", and I train three to 5 times a week. Right. I have no gut issues, but I'm making no progress with the diet I'm on.
Okay. As in you've plateaued. You're not gaining fat or muscle. You're standstill.
Completely plateaued. I've tried increasing my calories. I'm just stodgy all the time. I can't do it, sort of thing. Like, is there specific foods you would say you need more of this? Like, yeah, what would you potentially lay out a day?
Yeah, so what I'd probably do is I'd work out your protein intake first. That's the most important thing. I think if you hit that, you can't go too wrong. You have a sort of an amount to start with. So protein first, somewhere between probably 160 and 180 for you. Depends what you started with. If it was 300 at first, I'd probably gradually ease you down to about 160, 180. I'll probably match that in terms of fat grams. So it'd be 160, 180 fat. I know you're very busy, so I might actually increase that to 250, but I'd do that as the weeks went on. So I'd decrease carbs, 20 grams, increase fats, maybe 10 grams, something like that.
Okay.
Foods I'll be focusing on. I'd work out what you're currently eating, of course, because I'd need to know what you're doing right now. And I wouldn't want to put in things that are completely unusual to you, but it'd be a diet of probably beef, eggs, salmon,
Yep.
chicken thighs, maybe duck if you like it, things like that. Just every meat, every fish, every egg, pretty much.
Cool. And that would be like, so breakfast would be split up into a macro balanced amount, and then obviously lunch and dinner as well. And I'd have to obviously pre-cook that every single day, relatively, i.e., meal prep it. What's your take on frozen or freezing after being made?
Good question. I think freezing after being made is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just be conscious of reheating it after it's already been cooked and frozen.
Okay.
So I wouldn't do that. So once it's been frozen once, I wouldn't then cook it again.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just as nutritious as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
A bit more nutritious than like canned food.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the source as well. Like sometimes frozen food is frozen because it's been, out for a long time, sort of thing, somewhere in some godforsaken hellhole country. So do you see what I mean? So it depends on the sourcing as well, but usually fresh is better if you can get it. Even better if you can support a local butcher or dairy farm, something like that.
Definitely. Obviously, budget is a big thing with this sort of diet, because buying fresh meat or good standard of meat, it's expensive. Like you and if you're already got a family to feed as well, or a partner that that's got to understand that you're going through this process, like, would you say this is it for the rest of your life? You should keep going with this diet. Are you saying a short period of time or a longer period of time, stay on this diet, sort out your gut microbiome, make sure you feel healthy, make sure you're making progress? Now, once that's all good, then you can start implementing other things. Is that something you would suggest?
Yeah, I just want to touch on the cost thing at the start.
Yeah.
So how much currently, Jareth, do you spend on food, say per day or per week, like on average?
Probably about 100, maybe a little bit more a week on myself. Like I'm currently bulking, so I'm trying to get in as many calories as possible through obviously watching my macros. I won't lie to you, John, I drink a lot of milk. I found it to be the cheapest way to be able to get my calories in.
It works.
So I drink 4 to 6 pints of milk a day.
That's right. Yeah, there's a guy called Sam Sulek who drinks like, I want to say like 2 gallons of milk a day or something. I don't know, something stupid. But yeah,
it's not healthy. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but it works. It's the
it works
cheapest way
to keep weight
it.
on. It does work to keep weight on. Yeah. So on that point, so I spend when I'm bulking. So imagine trying to gain a bit of lean mass at maybe a few months ago, something like £70 per week.
Mm-hmm.
You spend 100.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where I think I like to go to like Waitrose or Sainsbury's,
Meal
try
deals.
and get a higher quality of meat or products within my diet. Actually, that would be a good one for you to answer. What supermarket chains? Any variation?
Yeah, so it seems that Waitrose and Sainsbury's are probably the best 2 over here.
Okay.
Waitrose are probably a bit better. After that, would probably be Morrison's.
Yep.
Then pretty much all comparable at the bottom, I'd say Tesco, Asda, Iceland, whatever's left, I think.
Mm-hmm.
M&S is quite good as well. So,
do you love an Aldi? Do you love an Aldi shop?
I used to shop quite a bit at Aldi. We don't really do any more. I mean, when I'm here, I tend to stock up from stuff from Morrison's.
Yep.
When I'm at my partner's Sophie's in Woking, we tend to do Morrison's, Sainsbury's, and the butcher. But I think most of our meat at the moment does come from the butcher. So
that's cool.
We're not budgeting by any means. We're not like buying the cheapest thing possible, but we're not buying £30 per kilo ribeye steaks from Waitrose or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Like you're not going crazy over it. But again, like as you know, the quality makes a big difference.
I think there's a marginal benefit. Yes, I think the average person right now, if they came to me and said, "All right, I want to try this carnivore diet. I want to do it as cheap as possible. Go to Lidl, buy cheapest ground mince, whatever's in the freezer or whatever, and some eggs, like cheap barn eggs." That would still be infinitely better than any other diet on the planet right now. So that includes paleo, keto, veggie, vegan, plant-based, fruitarian, anything, infinitely better.
As a
And
carnivore,
cheaper.
do you verge keto?
It's kind of a bit like keto, yeah. But the goal isn't to be in ketosis. Well, it's a biological state of the body which is in as a default mechanism. So your default mechanism, Jareth, isn't to eat 4, 5, 6 meals per day.
Yeah.
As a human being, it's not. It's a modern thing. But say you went back 1,000 years time, then hundreds of thousand years beyond that. So what our genetic makeup is mostly made of, we probably may be having 1 meal a day, if not one every other day. Realistically speaking, depending on how much food we could catch or hunt. So that kind of tells me we're just not meant to eat that often. And so when we're in that state, like you might call it starvation state, that's what we call it anyway nowadays, us modern folk. But for them, that wasn't starving. They weren't starving until they could no longer move. And they continued to move because they produced ketones from their stored body fat that they're able to store over winter by, having some berries and fruits and things and a good season in the summer when they could access a lot of food. So they'd store the fat over winter, then that would keep them going. They produce ketones as a result of the fat oxidation from their body fat, and that's how they keep going. So our default state is ketosis. It's just that people have the biggest issue reaching that because sugar addiction, ultra processed foods, the mindset towards eating out all the time and doing all this sort of stuff. I think that's part of the issue. The issue is our culture, really. Our biology can still do it. It's just we never get to that point because it's so tricky,
Yeah. To be able to actually go to the shop and potentially buy something that hasn't been ultra processed. So when it comes to I don't know, your average meal or your average shop, you're basically saying that it's hard to not buy stuff without sugar in it.
Yeah, you have to phase this thing out slowly. So like we touched on earlier about the gut microbiome, the 3-week kind of thing. You need to transition over a longer period of time. So the gut microbiome bacteria that you have right now is existing because everything you've done over the last 3 weeks plus has formed it in a certain way. And even since birth, so whether or not you're breastfed will impact your gut microbiome at this point, your susceptibility to illness.
Yeah.
So with that being said, if you've been eating nothing but Skittles for 3 weeks, then you go to eating nothing but bricks of butter, your body's not going to be happy. It's not used to that. The gut microbiome will be upset, and it will send a signal to your brain to say, no, I'm not comfortable doing this. I'm not used to this. Put me back in where I was before.
Yeah.
So you have to remember that, there will always be some issue when you transition between diets. So yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Oh, mate, I got loads from my clients and people which have just messaged in. If you want to go for a few of them.
Yeah, we could do it.
All right, cool. So this one's from actually a powerlifter. It's talking about snacks while you're training. Okay, and he actually eats a Snickers every single time he goes in and trains. Now, is there anything you would recommend instead, or would you recommend something that is obviously less processed, or is it actually a good idea?
That's quite a high tier question, Jareth. Yeah, the Snickers bar does provide a lot of food energy, I guess. The thing is, what I'd say is I'd rather you not be digesting anything when you're working out at all, in any instance.
Yep.
The only people that should be eating when they're working out, if they have to, are people that are perhaps in a diabetic shock where they've gone hypoglycemic or something from the insulin that they've used. That there's only one instance, and I think that's a medical instance. Outside of that, you shouldn't be digesting anything when you train. You want all your blood to be in your muscles. If you have to eat something between, I'd probably suggest just eating that food before you train, as in with the pre-workout meal, assuming you had it.
What would be your pre-workout meal?
Right now, for the last, God knows how long it's been, something like 4 to 6 eggs, just whole eggs, some cheese, maybe 50 grams of cheese or something, whatever cheese I want, raw cheese usually. Usually a glass of raw milk, sometimes some whey protein powder. That's about it. So it's pretty simple, it takes me about 5-10 minutes to make, but yeah, it's not too bad. So that's my ideal workout meal. So I usually train at, I think about 8, 9, 10 o'clock, something like that in the morning.
Yep.
I usually wait about an hour and a half before I train. Usually, I find that sort of meal doesn't bloat me out, it doesn't make me feel sick or anything, so I can handle that quite well.
Yep.
And it's more so I find that it hydrates me because it's got some water content, some minerals, things like that. So that's quite useful as well. So I prefer to train fed at the moment, but some people I know do train fasted. A lot of people in our community, honestly, a lot of carnivores train fasted.
Okay.
And they seem to train better as well. So,
What's the benefits like for your body? Like, what does your body state go into when you're training fasted? Does it hit something like a different stage? It's like, oh, okay, I need to do something extra. I haven't got any food left in me. I've slept for 8 hours. I've been up for an hour and getting the kids going to school. Like, is there a different like state that your body's in when you train fasted?
Sure, yeah. So when you're fasted, so you haven't eaten overnight and assume you train, your body will begin to oxidize fatty acids more. So as the glycogen within your body, so your muscle glycogen, say Jareth, you store, I don't know, 800 grams of muscle glycogen when you're filled up, tanked up, whatever. When that reserve begins to dip a bit, you'll then start to dip further into your fatty acids as well. So the fat, or the adipose fat tissue stored in your body. So as that fast goes on, it'll do that more and more and more. Now, people that have issues with that, in that they can't produce much glycogen from the fat, and any extra protein they might have, like they say the day before, that's a process called gluconeogenesis. If they can't do that sufficiently, i.e. they're not fat adapted, they end up having issues with training and hydration. So I say to most people, if you're going to do fasted training, ideally do it in a sort of ketogenic or carnivore style diet. Then some people do manage it fine. And what happens to the body when you're training fasted is your cortisol goes up, so a stress hormone, but that's natural. It's meant to do that. It's doing exactly what it's purposed to do, which allows you to create basically glucose in your body from what I mentioned earlier. So you have substrate in your blood ready to use, ready to go at that time. So your body produces stress in order to alleviate the systemic stress as a result of the training, if that makes sense. So you can still perform. So the idea is you don't get completely flagged up. But part of the issue of this is if you're going to do faster training, you probably shouldn't really do long training sessions. I mean, like 3-4 hours. You're doing 2 hours legs, then an hour on the cardio treadmill, something. So that's what happens basically when you train fasted.
Okay, so it's basically you're saying if someone wants to train fasted, take your time with it. So potentially start with an hour before, then maybe 2 hours before, and then just slowly elongate the gap between your training and your diet, sort of thing, or when you last ate. Don't just go have a night's sleep, wake up in the morning, don't eat anything, straight in the gym.
Yeah, but back it up basically. So you just transition everything slowly. Another point I want to make is that it seems to be about 50-50 from my experience, where people either prefer to train fasted or not fasted.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a correct way to do it. I think there's a way it's better for everyone, but you have to find out for yourself.
Yeah.
So the only way you'll know that is how you feel when you're in the gym, how motivated you are, what your energy's like, and your training performance. And if you train better fasted, then you should continue doing that, because that's ultimately the stimulus to build more muscle. But if you're putting that feeding window back too far, that will limit the amount of opportunity you have to put food back in the system. So in which case, if you're hitting a plateau, then add a snack in pre-workout.
Okay. So I've got one that sort of follows on from that. The protein intake window. What's your shout on this? After training, before training, so on. Does it really matter?
Honestly, no. The main thing about body composition when it comes to bodybuilding is getting the mass of food in your body over a period of time. So I'd imagine if you had it equated out, so you had, me and a twin, I eat, say, 3 hours after workout, usually 2 or 3 hours, and a twin that ate immediately after. Spread that out over 10 years, I don't think it would make any difference at all.
No.
Now, saying that if you're not using the opportunities over a period of time to maximize muscle protein synthesis, i.e. you're only eating once a day, then perhaps you're missing out a little bit. But assuming you are eating enough protein once a day, that spike in protein synthesis will begin to be prolonged, so it'll actually last for longer. So people miss that out when they talk about muscle protein synthesis studies. The idea is you can spike it every 4 hours or so, 4 hours food, 4 hours food. The thing is, if you spike it with enough food in one go, that will prolong the muscle protein synthesis cascade. So it's not the biggest deal. But I think when people start to have issues building muscle, say on 1 meal a day versus 2 versus 3, okay, increase it by meals. That's one lever to pull, but it's not one of the first levers, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you'll get the same sort of, I don't know many people that could eat 180 grams of protein in one dish anyway. I don't know about you. I know I definitely couldn't do it. So you're saying the difference of eating literally a couple of hours after is not going to make much difference in comparison to eating immediately after and eating your whole protein amount in one day.
Yeah, I mean, I used to go with my brother Carl to Southampton sometimes. We'd train in different gyms around Bournemouth. And we'd always be stressing out afterwards, oh, have you got your protein shake with you? Or I might have to buy a protein bar. And you dread the thought of spending £3 on a protein bar back then, sort of thing. Now it's pretty much normal, but you'd hate that. Then you think, oh, I've got to buy these eggs from the supermarket and buy this chicken pasta pot thing. And you'd stress out so much about it. I've not noticed any difference in my training outcomes at all. In fact, this last June, or June this year, I've reached my most muscular ever in terms of the fat-free muscle mass of my body. And I've done that with a carnivore diet, so not eating really any appreciable amount of carbohydrates and not worrying at all about post-workout windows. So,
because the carnivore diet it's a simple diet in the food you actually need to buy, but it's very strict, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Going from a normal lifestyle diet of, I don't know, like chicken and rice that everyone says, oh, go eat your chicken and rice sort of thing. Like, do you have any carbs, like anything at all? Like that you are like, you have to have at least this. I know you were saying a percentage earlier was quite small, about 20%, did you say? But where would you get those from?
Okay, so there's kind of a few schools of thought in this. So there's zero carb when you talk about carnivore diets, and they're people that just eat meat, salt and water pretty much. Then there's, you might say, strict carnivore, so people like me that just eat meat, salt, water, eggs, fish, dairy, things like that. Then there's more like ketovore. So ketovore is someone that will add in some plants most days. So it might be onion, garlic, cauliflower, salad, like just little things. So nothing, not like potatoes, but just like light salady sort of things. Now the problem is, I think that zero carbs is better because you're less likely to have activation of something called the Randall cycle. So that's also known as the fatty acid cycle. So the idea is you have in your body at any given time, you have sugar and fat. Now, when you begin to fill up those jugs of, you become fat, you know, your body can't deal with it. It starts to store everything. So that's what the Randall cycle is basically. So you have too much sugar in your bloodstream, too much fat in your bloodstream, or cells of your body at any given time. Then there's an inhibition, so they can't be stored anymore. So they begin to cause something called inflammation, which is from something called glycation. So that's when the protein structures of your skin and just your cell walls begins to degrade. So every time you eat sugar, you're basically potentiating further aging. So for me, the idea is to go close to 0 grams, but I can't do that because I eat or drink a lot of raw milk and stuff like that. So I'm probably most days somewhere between like 20 and 40, maybe 50 grams. But that's all through raw milk, cheese, eggs. So I'm not eating rice, I'm not eating, I don't know, whatever it is, Skittles. So,
you love a Skittle, don't you, mate?
I love a Skittle. Yeah.
But, no, it's, I guess, like reducing your carbs that much. Like when you first started the carnivore diet, did you not feel like lethargic? Did you not feel like your brain chemistry was almost changing, or just like maybe a bit more down? Like, or did you do it so gradually that your body adapted, like you said, over the 3-week to 6-week period?
I think I adapted over about a 2-week period, so it was quite quick.
Okay.
I didn't notice any real dip after the 2-week mark. So I felt a bit weaker, a bit sluggish the first 2 weeks. And beyond that, I was the same as I was beforehand, pretty much. Except I felt a bit better. My digestion was better. I wasn't so thirsty all the time. My skin started to feel better. But I did experience something which is a detox symptom. So that's something we call oxalate dumping. So that's when your body begins to release stored oxalate crystals, kind of like you know, if you drink loads of coffee, the one day you say, I'm not going to drink it ever again, you start to get headaches. That's your body detoxing. So it's the same kind of thing. But these oxalate crystals can form on your skin, they produce themselves in your urinary tract, your kidneys, things like that. So some people have different issues. So I had these like spots or welts on my shins for quite a long time because I used to consume like spinach and stuff like that and things which are high in oxalates. So that's part of the issue with transitioning too quick. Now I would have had to get rid of that stuff from my body anyway. It just would have happened a bit slower, so that would have been more pleasant. So yeah, you can do it too fast. That's definitely true.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is people, if they want to go onto a carnivore diet or they want to go onto a very low carb diet, that the transition needs to be slower. Otherwise you could have adverse effects.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think a lot of people rush it because they do it so slowly at the beginning. They begin to get digestion kind of benefit. You know, the stomach's not so sore. They sleep better at night.
Yeah.
You don't. The thing is, when you can try it yourself. So if you just have a meal out, or just have a meal at home, just have some steak and eggs or something, or some ground beef, eggs and cheese. Eat that and tell me how you feel 2 hours after.
Yeah.
Then do that same, calorie amount, but have pasta and chicken or something.
Yeah.
I know for a fact you'll feel better after eating the meat because your body's designed to deal with that. It'll be a less surface area, less mass, or less volume. So you'll be able to digest it better. It won't have all the other stuff in it that makes you feel a bit crap. You'll notice your energy begins to feel a bit more balanced as well. But people won't know that until they experience it. So my kind of thing to people is like, I want you to experience it first and initially and get a good result from it.
Yeah.
But I know downstream you could be one of those people that just don't get a good transition sort of period. So take your time.
That's cool. I think it's just like the carbs are just so prevalent within our life these days. You know, sugars, like you said, in pretty much everything that you buy that's in a packet. So being able to cut that out obviously is extremely difficult. But at the same time, like, what made you want to go carnivore? Did you have stomach issues? Did you have was it just something that like just screamed out to you while you was doing your degree?
Yeah, so I think the year that we competed, I basically dieted on tuna and egg. So remember, it's 5 cans of tuna a day and like 1 fried egg, maybe 2 fried eggs in a day, maybe. I noticed my digestion was a lot better, but I got quite lean, but not really shredded. I think I kind of abused my body there. 2 hours of cardio a day, 6 training sessions a week, whatever it was, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I noticed I started to feel better, but I was like, oh, I can't really do this. But then I sort of revisited it later. So I thought, what if I get rid of all the stuff my body doesn't need and just put in what it does need? So if you're to pick like some foods that you can live off, it's beef, lamb, salmon, egg. More so beef and lamb than other things, just because they're richer in some minerals. And I worked my diet out from there. I quickly noticed I had to make some adjustments myself. So our diet is determined, or at least our digestive efficiency, capacity, ability, adaptability, or capability even, is justified by what we've eaten ancestrally. So where I've grown up, and my parents' parents, and that sort of thing. What was our diet like for the majority of our genetic heritage or lineage? Then you can compare that to someone else's. So it might be that, say, a Chinese person's was different to mine. Maybe they didn't have as much dairy, maybe didn't eat as many eggs. So therefore their dietary requirement is different. So they're used to something else.
Okay.
So what I found was I basically needed more dairy than most people. Had a high calcium requirement. So that's individual to me, as in I feel better that way. So that's the kind of way I built my diet. I heard of people like Dr. Sean Baker doing the diet. A few other sort of people that I've met online, and it's been very profound. So I initially did it kind of to work out how to reduce inflammation because of my back injury and things like that.
Yeah.
I had it tested, omega-3 ratio perfect. Inflammation was down to 0. I had no inflammatory markers at all. My body was healthy. So that helped me actually diagnose how bad my back was. In that time, I also felt better cognitively, so I could function better, work longer, do more, achieve more in the gym.
Yeah.
My digestion was better, sleep was better. Like, every facet of my life was better.
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, well, I'm going to keep doing this. Then I had some sort of, emotional issues, lifestyle issues, things like that, basically, like crap I had to deal with.
Yeah.
I went off it and I played around with a bit with like Skittles and Mars bar. Well, not really Mars bar, maybe Haribo, things like
Skills, bro.
that. Definitely the skills. And I was just eating loads of carbs and pasta and pizza and stuff.
Yeah.
But I did that for a few months and I came off. I was like, I don't want to feel like this again. So I went back onto the carnivore diet and I've been doing it since pretty much. So
I love it.
that's it for me. I have 2 off meals per month with family, usually 1 or 2. And they're like a roast dinner, a sensible size roast dinner, or maybe some meat and like a Chinese chicken sweet and sour soup thing or something like that. You know, something which is a bit cheaty, but not the worst thing.
So when you eat carbs now, how reactive are you to it? Like, what does it do to you?
So initially notice within about an hour period, I start to feel a bit sweaty. As my body's trying to detox from it already. I notice that my ankles and knees begin to swell slightly. And that's as if you've been like standing up all day and you get in from a hard day of work and you're like, that's not normal. That's what it feels like. That's just with eating the food without doing anything else. Now, if I add in like vegetables to that matter, so some broccoli or something, then my guts will be distressed as well. So your body does kind of readjust itself and doesn't get used to it. So that's why I say to people, if you know you're going to have it each month, have it twice a month, just have less.
Yeah.
Give your body some kind of resemblance. Oh, this is quite familiar to me. It sounds counterintuitive because the idea is to be clean and perfect. But like I said at the start, you know, people aren't clean and perfect. People don't stick to diets. Yeah. We're human. So, do you know what I mean? So that's what kind of how I base my diet around anyway.
I like it. It's cool to like hear from a different side of it. Like obviously I've never followed a specific diet personally. I've always just made sure what I'm eating is as healthy as possible and as nutritious as possible. But yeah, it's good to hear it from the other side. Like, so if people are feeling like they're eating food and they are feeling bloated, and I hear that so much. Oh, I feel bloated or I feel puffy. Like, what test can they go and do to work out if, you know, everything's okay? Like, is there a specific, you have to do this specific test? Like, what would you do?
That's a good question. So tests are used to define a diagnosis. You have a test based on your symptomology. Now, if the symptomology is present in that it's happening so often, you first look at your diet. Are you drinking milk and you're allergic to milk? Are you eating, I don't know, a big bowl of fibrous cereal every day?
Yeah.
Like the most obvious things. Are you drinking loads of water with your meals?
Yeah.
That will dilute your stomach acid. So there's sort of things you look at. So then when you've pulled each of those levers and you've worked out, okay, it's not them, then you might have a stool test, try and work out what bacteria lies in your gut. You might test your blood to see if you've got some infection.
And how do you do that? Can you buy it online? Do you go to your doctor? What do you do?
Usually they can be accessed from your doctor, but sometimes it's quicker and a bit more efficient to buy it privately. So you can usually find these things privately in that you either pay someone to come out and do the test for you, or you can do it yourself like I do. So.
And what's it called again? A store test?
So you can get a stool test. So they literally check your stool. Yeah. I don't know many people that do it because it's a bit weird, but that's an option you have.
Yeah, but if you want to know these things, if you're, you know, you've got people which are trying keto diets, which are trying fasting, all this sort of stuff, it's not working for them. Like, understanding what's actually going on with your body, is if that's the right thing to do, then personally I say go and do it. Like, you know, it's in your own personal space. No one has to know apart from the doctor that you're going to go see about it. Because like obviously I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of the time they turn around to me and they're like, oh, I want to, you know, every time I have carbs it's so hard for me to be able to do it. But like, could they just be vitamin deficient? Could they just be not having enough water? Like, is it solely carbs that you think could be a massive problem?
I think it's mostly carbs, plant material, and water. So I couldn't really, it's a case by case basis sort of thing. What I noticed, Jareth, is that people that are on your sort of diet, so diet, chicken, rice, oats, blended meals, whatever, things with carbs, and basically, they tend to drink a lot of water.
Okay.
And that tells me that their body is very wasteful.
Okay.
So if you think the average person nowadays, probably, I couldn't imagine how often they go to the loo for a number 2. But it's probably a lot more frequent than what I do, because I don't have much waste. I don't put stuff in my body that it doesn't need. My body deals with all of it, and it takes it, extracts the nutrition, then just gets rid of Most of it's just the sludge from my stomach, basically, and intestines, that, dead cells, basically. Basically, yeah. Then if you're going to the toilet a lot, then it's probably likely that you're wasting a lot of nutrition.
Yeah.
That's never a good thing. So that's where leaky gut comes into it. And that basically makes the membrane of your intestinal barrier more permeable, so things can start to go through it. So that means anything you put through your body will go through that barrier.
Okay.
That can reach your blood and basically act as a slow poison. So it can form in your knees if you've got bad knees, your brain, anywhere. Any chemical in your body can be exacted anywhere, pretty much.
How researched is the leaky gut thing?
It's well researched enough to know that we have a visual representation of it. So we know it has the outer endothelial layer, which is comprised of villi, like little fingery things with bacteria on them, glycocalyx, other scientific sort of stuff. There's probably 5, 6, 7 other layers which deal with stuff going through each of those membranes. We do know that toxicity can build up faster in people that have leaky gut, in that your body should be able to extract what needs and get rid of what doesn't. So if you're consuming a shit ton of cyanide or mercury, obviously you'll probably die. But if you just have a little bit every now and then, your body should be able to deal with it, extract it from itself, and get rid of it. But when you have a leaky gut, more of that will be absorbed into your tissues because there isn't there's a permeable layer which is letting it in, basically. So we know people that have had a test which is called I think it's called a PEG 400 test. So that's a test for measuring leaky gut.
Okay.
And it basically found, the people that had a crap score for that, basically, or a negative score, ends up having high toxicity in the body, and also a higher risk of illness, probably injury as well, actually.
So you're saying basically, if you're on a diet and you're going to the toilet a lot, drinking a lot of water, you should probably get that test done to be able to see if you do have a leaky gut and how
everyone will have it, Jareth. I'm not saying it's something. It's not like it's not like having a virus in your body that's present, then it's not, and it kind of goes away eventually. Everyone will have that to some degree. So it's a sliding scale. Okay. No one has a perfect gut, but you have kind of levels to it. So the person with the leakiest gut will often have the worst health. So myself, I'm the perfect example of this. So every time I take medication, I feel ill. My gut's disrupted. I get acid reflux. I'm more susceptible to illness.
Yeah.
If I take antibiotics, the same thing. If I'm stressed out, the same thing. I'm also autistic, so my susceptibility or tolerance to these sort of things susceptibility is higher because my tolerance is lower. So no matter how hard I try to mind over matter, my body is what my body is. My body's not typical in that sense.
Yeah.
So for someone like me, or someone that's got severe illness, they have to work a bit harder than the average person to maintain a non-leaky gut, if you were. So that's kind of how it comes into it with me anyway. So I try to do things the right way if I can.
And you found cutting out the carbs, focusing on the carnivore diet style has been the most beneficial for you.
Yeah, and I've tried everything that you can imagine, basically. Every diet there is, pretty much, apart from fruitarianism and veganism. I tried vegetarianism. I lasted like 3 days and I had catastrophic illness, dry skin, fatigue, depression, manic, anxiety.
Wow.
My body didn't like that at all. So was it, it's an obvious warning sign, don't do it. So I didn't.
Yeah. But obviously some people it does work for, some people
eventually it will stop though. That's the thing. So
is it?
I know what you're trying to say. Yeah. So some people will receive some positive benefit from any dietary intervention because you're getting rid of something that you might otherwise not have. So the average person doing a plant-based diet, as in whole foods, just fruit and vegetables, they're getting rid of a lot of processed food, probably a lot of seed oils in a lot of cases, so they probably don't have the same issues. But one of the problems is you'll glycate much faster, like I mentioned earlier. So you got too much sugar in your bloodstream at one time. Yeah. And your pancreas can only work so hard. So your pancreas is almost like a ticking time bomb. So your pancreas releases insulin in response to boluses of food that you take in, whether it be carbohydrate, protein, or fat. So they actually release insulin in that order based on degree. So carbohydrates obviously require the most amount of insulin to store the carbohydrate as glycogen in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So when you consume a diet high in carbohydrates, that process is more likely to happen.
Okay.
So that's one of the issues with the vegetarian diets. And the obvious things is like vitamin deficiencies, which are extremely common.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get collagen in the vegetarian or the vegan diet. So
Mm-hmm.
your skin's going to not be great. You're going to struggle to find the amino acids in the right ratio that you need to build your tissues.
Yep.
And I always kind of tell people this, like, if you look at a cow, you cut open a cow, like just look at the muscle. You cut up a human, what do we look like? We don't look like a fibrous cell wall with whole grain brands and wheat germ and all this sort of stuff. We look, our blood is red. You know, we have white bones and we look like an animal. So we should eat according to what our biology matches, if that makes sense. It's the most logical thing for me anyway.
Yeah, well, like obviously the carnivore diet takes that principle into account, doesn't it? So it takes the principle of the simplified diet that we used to eat should still work for the modern day, and because we've been marketed in a way to buy all these extra things which are quick and easy, and look, this fits your life and this is going to make you healthy and have an Actimel and all this sort of stuff. Like now we've bought into, well, we need those things because it's just, they've rolled with it. So what you're saying is that basically the carnivore diet almost just brings it back to basics. It gives you this raw ground that we used to live on, and it just sort of abolishes all this like years and years of new products.
Jareth, I've met people that have put cancer into remission, supposedly incurable cancer into remission with this diet. People with type 1 diabetics that I know, they no longer require 100 units of Lantus insulin each day. They require like 20 units. People, type 2 diabetics, that put it into remission pretty much within weeks in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
People that have got Crohn's disease no longer, well, they always have Crohn's disease. They've got that weakness, but they no longer suffer from the symptoms of it.
Yeah.
People with lupus is a terrible disease. Another one, MS, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. You know, the symptoms are always improved on this diet. People have issues when they've been following the wrong diet for too long. So the trick is to get on it earlier while you can.
Yeah.
So like even for you, like you're a friend, I'd like to see you on the carnivore diet because I know it'd be the best thing for your long-term health. But right now, do you want to do it? Maybe not. Maybe you're doing all right. So yeah, maybe just enjoy your youth sort of thing. But at the same time, most people have to transition eventually to a diet that isn't full of Skittles and oats sort of thing. You have to find something which is a bit more practical. We know the longest living people tend to eat a diet which is lower processed food, lower sugar, things like that. So we should try to emulate that at least, I think.
So the old school healthy balanced diet of vegetables, meat, like, and obviously some sort of carbohydrate, you would say like you got to work out your version of that. Like you can't summarize that for everyone. So
I did my dissertation on public health guidelines in uni. So I got 2 sample groups. So I got the general public, just average person on the street, and I got the gym goers. And I compared both of their knowledge of the public health guidelines. I can't remember exactly. I think they scored something like 4 out of 8 for the gym goers, something like 3 out of 8 for the general public, something like that sort of amount. So that told me even the fit people don't really know what they're doing. Do you see what I mean? So the guidelines themselves, I don't believe in them personally. They're brought across on a lot of what we call epidemiology. So the study of a population of people, often using surveys and non-clinical trial, non-metabolic ward, non-lock-in study kind of interventions. So they're asked, okay, Jareth, what did you eat a month ago? I ate quite a bit of fruit and vegetables. Oh, how many did you eat? I don't know, on Monday. For about 8 servings. Okay, that's assuming you know how much a serving is.
Yeah.
That's also assuming, do you always eat eight servings? And people always have that bias to say, oh, I did the healthier thing, I did the better thing, because it's that white lab coat syndrome sort of thing. So you can't rely on someone's survey information to tell you what a population's eating. And we know this is true because when we ask people, then we observe them, they don't actually do that. They're secret eaters. They eat different foods to what they say they do.
Yeah.
Most people are off by about 40% in terms of their food tracking versus what they actually eat.
Yeah.
So that's a weakness in the study, and that's what a lot of these studies are based on. So the water amount is a guess. The fruit 5 fruit a day, where it is amount, that's a guess.
Yeah.
It's not based on hard science, so that's probably my biggest issue. And when we try and find hard science, we don't have to look very far because we realize there really isn't any. The best science we have to support a diet that we should follow is the carnivore diet, because we have something called nitrogen isotope testing.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually measures the nitrogen content of bones in ancient civilizations from 10, 20, 30, 40, probably hundreds of thousands of years ago, pretty much. And we can find out what they're eating for the most part. So we can match out what that nitrogen isotope testing level is, and it'll work out what amino acid ratio was in their food. So how their body is compositioned.
Yeah.
So we actually know that it's hard science. We can say this person here that died 300,000 years ago ate predominantly an animal that was like a deer, and they also ate some small birds, something like that,
Yeah.
So we know that historically that's what we've been eating. So we've evolved whilst doing that. Now, it's not been until the last, I don't know, 10, 20, 30,000 years or so, something like that,
Yeah.
while our brain size or capacity has shrunk by about, I think, something like 200 centiliters. So our brains have actually got smaller in the last, since we included grains and stuff in our diet. So the best evidence we do have right now is actually suggesting we should not eat fruit and vegetables because they're a modern food. Because we've grown them because we need them because we had so many people. We populated too fast, so we began to run out of the big woolly mammoths, the big animals that we used to hunt. So we had to find ways of cultivating. So we built farms, we built crops and things. We built ways to get more food in to nourish our population, because we soon realized that a bigger population is a stronger population because more warriors, more fighters to get rid of the baddies, sort of thing. So that's kind of a bit of our history anyway.
Didn't, like, back in the day, so when we were on, we were hunting for meat. Obviously, a meat was like a delicacy. So I hear this from vegans and vegetarians. They were like, we're not built to eat meat, or all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, obviously we are, but we couldn't have it as often back then because it was a lot harder to get. We needed it, and the ones who survived were the ones who were the most efficient of the meat, but the ones that ate the grains, ate the fruit, went berry picking, mushrooms, so on, because they potentially couldn't hunt, or they weren't very good hunters, or, so you're saying historically we've grown, I guess, better, we've evolved better through a meat diet than through a carbohydrate-based vegetable diet.
That's exactly it. Now, the argument for saying, oh, we're better off now is, yes, but we live longer now. Yes, but we have medicines because we have such a giant population. So with every giant population, you're more likely to have anomalies of absolute fucking geniuses that can work out cures for things.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? We have more ancient wisdom because we have more ancient people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we got to where we are. One other argument is like the teeth thing. Why do we not have entirely canine teeth? Because we invented knives and forks.
Yeah.
The first example of, I believe, a sharp tool was hundreds of thousands of years ago, I think.
Yeah.
So that tells us, okay, for that time, at least we've been able to cut into meat and things. Now, we also learn how to cook. We learn how to, bake things. We learn how to roast something in a way. So we've adapted all these cooking methods to deal with the food. So no longer is something that's seemingly so hard to eat and chew any more difficult. We can access nutrients in that food quicker. So the person eating a carnivorous cooked food diet will always be able to eat more than a person eating a raw carnivore diet.
Yeah.
So access to more nutrients, basically.
Yeah. But it's just crazy to think that, like, why is this not being promoted? Is it because it's not the most beneficial for the supermarket chains? Is it not the most beneficial for, the big companies that run, all of this? Is that why they're not, like, pushing this or promoting this?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. So if you go to the average supermarket,
Yep.
Anyone can do this. You'll find about 80% of what's in there is plant produce. So whether it be a Snickers bar, that's from a plant basically. Cereal, vegetables, fruit, anything like that. Any sort of packet crisps, whatever. If you were to say, okay, we're going to all do the carnivore diet now, we've immediately lost 80% of the supermarket. Then you'd have to create such a huge supply from farmers, which they could do, and it is entirely ethical and entirely sustainable to do. It is completely possible. But a lot of people might lose their jobs by doing that. Which is part of the issue. So we know that something like 60 to 70,000 people or producers are manufacturing different products each year. How many of them make it to the shelves? How many jobs are you getting rid of if you get rid of all of those people with all those products? So each product, say, had 5-10 people to make. You've lost loads and loads of people, and that's just in one country. Then you replicate that anywhere else. Now, there's a strong political, financial bias for the plant-based agenda. The reason one reason how I absolutely know this is if I go into, I think, Asda online on the website or Tesco's, type in chicken. What I've noticed most times is they've had a sponsored ad for no chicken. I've searched for chicken breast. That's obviously what I'm looking for. Why are they trying to sell me something I'm not meant to have? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. So would you say, obviously I don't know, the profit margins are potentially bigger, and that's why
the profit margins are much greater? Yes. So where our average box of Kellogg cereal, 500 grams, whatever, was about £1 or so, maybe £2 a few years ago. Now it's about £4, I think. Assuming you're not Aldi or something. So all those foods are going up drastically. In price. Meat hasn't gone up that much in price.
No. But is that because there's more demand for that product? And meat, there's less demand because it's not being as promoted as much. Like, just going off TV and everything, that everyone's like, this guy, you'll hear like 10 bodybuilders, for instance, if we're talking about a gym environment, you'll know about the one who's vegan.
Yeah.
Because it's different. And it sounds healthier, and you're not, I hate to say it, but you're not slaughtering animals. And obviously that is a bad thing in a lot of people's eyes, sort of, which I completely understand. But the same thing, like, the vegan powerlifters, the vegan bodybuilders, the vegan people which look amazing on this diet, the other people have forgotten about. Like, these are the ones that are promoted. And I guess this is where I'm getting across, like, it is promoted as the right thing to do when you're saying the carnivore is the right thing to do.
Well, it seems like the most logical place for human nutrition in terms of like what you should be trying to aspire to do. Now, not everyone has to do a carnivore diet, but everyone, I think, should do a carnivore diet.
Yeah.
There's a disparity between that. So no one has to do it because no, people can live to 100 without it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for people to have the optimal health outcomes, they should do that. Just because there's the least chance of or risk of issues, I think. But yeah, there's always going to be financial backing on all these things. It's something we're always battling. I don't promote anything really. I don't really sell anything, so I've got no real I don't really have a bias. I've just seen the effect it has on me and the 300, 400, 500 people that I've consulted with. When you see people that are really ill for that long and now they're not, you're like, it's the same anecdote over and over again. It's repeatable. I think Jordan Peterson said this once. He said, okay, if you have a hypothesis, it's just an idea, it's just a thought in your head, a brainstorm. Oh, this might happen if you do this. Then if you do that intervention, then enough anecdotes build up. It's more of like a theory or a belief. So the carnivore diet is a theory or belief, but it's slowly becoming more of a fact because people are starting to wake up to the idea that, okay, maybe we can live on things which aren't from the earth. You mentioned something earlier about like slaughter and stuff like that. And I don't like seeing animals slaughtered, but I see it as a necessary evil. Now I'm going to ask you a question here, and I want you to answer honestly. So how many animals do you think are killed each year in the US alone through plant-based agriculture?
So we're talking about insects, we're talking about worms, things that basically, allow the soil to be better for growing and all this. So all of these birds, anything
Birds,
that's through
everything.
harvesting, oh, it's hundreds of thousands, and all of these things are needed for pollinating. They're also needed for what was it called? It's lost my brain. When you're trying to make the soil more efficient. I don't remember the word.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't think of the word. When you're trying to do all of that, all of it. Yeah. So I'm going to say hundreds of thousands of animals are killed during the process of harvesting plant-based products.
Yeah. So it's 4 quadrillion. That's the approximate estimate. 4 quadrillion. Now, I don't think I eat, per capita, per person, I don't eat thousands of animals each year.
Yeah.
No way. Do you see what I mean? So if someone wants to approach it with the vegan argument of, you kill more animals, it's not true. And we also don't butcher animals for the most part. Very few animals are killed in a nasty way. Now, some are. Yeah, I don't agree with that. But a lot of the times that's based in, honestly, it's based on the Indian population. They don't look after their animals very well. We know this. It's been very well established. In the US, also not that great. In the UK, it's a different experience, different story. It's much better over here. We're quite fortunate. But yeah, so when people make the ethical argument to me, I'm like, you've already lost before you say anything. But someone just said in the chat as well, stone tools, 3.3 million years apparently.
So that's why all of these get a lot flatter.
Yeah.
I guess
it's true.
There's a lot of arguments like that obviously vegetarians and vegans would throw up against obviously your style of eating. I guess they can all be counteracted in that way, but it's the problem, isn't it? It's these little points that get lost, especially with the the ground animals, all of this sort of stuff that the birds need to feed and so on and stuff like that. Like, it's very overlooked. And again, the carnivore diet isn't promoted because, well, you see it's going to sound a bit, not nice, but you see a cow being made into food, horrible. You see a mouse or let's go even smaller. You see an ant or a worm dying. It's just, it is what it is, sort of thing. Like
it's speciesism and it's hypocrisy.
Yeah,
really,
it's horrible.
That's the thing.
That way.
Yeah, the thing is, nature. I've been told this before by someone. Nature does discriminate, and nature isn't fair. But nature is equal in that it's trying to maintain stasis, so a permanent state for it to thrive. And part of that is not through us eating loads of fruit and vegetables. It's just not, because we're not thriving. The average person is getting ill. I don't know how many people in the US are on medications. Probably most of them. It wouldn't surprise me. You think how many medications? So oftentimes, I think once they get over the age of 50 or 60, they're often on like 5 medications on average. 5.
Is that because obviously the system there, sadly, they medicate, which then causes more medication? So instead of focusing upon a diet, focusing upon a healthier lifestyle, they promote the fact that we have a wonder drug. Yeah, take that. But you also need to take this one. And then when you take that one, take this one. Guess what? We're making money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, similar sort of thing.
Yeah, I've been through all this before myself. There are better versions of treatments out there that do exist, but the problem with our current medical system is that our current GPs, doctors, for the most part, so not all, not pointed fingers, they're trained a very long time ago. So they still believe that cholesterol is going to kill you. They actually still believe that dietary cholesterol impacts your cholesterol levels in your body, which we know it doesn't. There's all sorts of scientific fallacies that have come about, which have just been repeated enough times that everyone just goes with it. And when you actually look at the science yourself and you start to question things, you see it's completely different. But there's a lot of limitations. The average layperson won't understand that because they're not trained in statistical analysis. So when people tried to tell me, or I was told this recently, so when people tried to tell us this study says this whatever article, we have to ask them, if you had that raw data of that study at hand, could you perform the same calculations and tests and methodology and get the same result yourself.
Mm.
But 99.9% of the time they can't, because they're not trained in that.
No.
So they're putting all their faith into a researcher who's oftentimes a paid shill from the plant-based industry to promote something which is incorrect. And if you follow the line along, you'll see, oh, they're sponsored by this company, that company, and it's so common. You'd be so surprised.
Yeah, it's scary to think that us normal people, we put a lot of trust in governments and so on, and all these high-end people which have gone through years and years and years of education, to sadly be misled consistently. And I guess like the carnivore diet sort of abolishes all of that, because it's so back to basics that you can't mix it up in that way. You can pay someone to promote meat, you can pay someone to promote the sale of it, but what it actually does, you can't really change that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't emulate what evolution has done for us and to us through diet.
Yeah.
That I've learned this myself. So I've suffered with chronic fatigue for about 14 years. I've tried every supplement under the sun, like everything you can imagine, like even like slightly less thoughtful things, caffeine, stimulant mixes, things like that, and nothing has worked as well as a diet. Now, I'm not saying I feel perfect, but for the cost of using those things in the past versus how I feel now, I feel better.
Yeah. And would you say that's
like,
down to your microbiome again?
I'd probably say a mixture of a few things. So less inflammation, which is partly due to a better microbiome.
Yeah.
And ultimately just healthier mitochondria. So mitochondria are known as the powerhouse of the cell. And now your default state, Jareth, as a human being is to thrive, is to be in homeostasis, feeling perfect, doing everything you need to be doing. And when you allow your body to do that through providing it just what it needs and get rid of what it doesn't, those mitochondria will begin to work better. So they've got something inside them called complexes. So inside the mitochondria, you've got complexes. Now, each one of them has a different purpose. But as those complexes process ATP and push it out to the cell to be used as energy, they start to spin faster. What you'll see with people that are metabolically unhealthy is that those mitochondria won't spin as fast, so therefore they're less effective. So they churn out less energy. And if your body has less energy to deal with at the mitochondrial level, it has less ability to deal with all illnesses of every kind. So if you optimize that, a lot of other stuff will begin to work itself out.
It's cool. It's cool to know. Like, it's crazy to think as well that like we've sort of overlooked this.
It seems so obvious. I mean, what have we eaten for so long, and what have we eaten now, and how's that impacted our health? We've got worse, but we're eating more of it, and we're advertising more of it.
Yeah, but
I mean?
It's what's it's. Sorry, I'm just getting up some more questions. I guess like you said, it's just what has been promoted for the last 100, maybe a couple of 100 years, maybe a bit less than that. And it's just what we've got used to. And it's funny because like they do loads of. Have you got like? Do you know much studies about like tribal communities and stuff like that who naturally live off these sorts of diets? Like, what sort of stuff have you got on that?
Yeah, so there's a few tribes we can talk about. Now, there's limitations when I talk about each of these because how people perceive their diets changes based on who you ask. So that's a limitation I do have. But there's tribes such as the Hadza, Maasai, the Inuit. I believe there's probably some more, but I've not remembered them. I think there were some Mongolian folks as well. And basically, they all had a diet rich in meat. The people that were closest to the equator tend to have a diet which has more carbohydrates, which makes sense. More sun, more vegetation, more plants, more access to sugar, basically. But when we go to like the Inuit sort of area, those sort of nations, their diet was predominantly fat. So they had to eat a lot of fat to store a lot of fat because they were oxidizing so much energy, or oxidizing fat to create so much energy. Because when you're in the snow carrying stuff, you're freezing, your metabolism's going haywire sort of thing. So you have to store a lot of fat. So those people have genetic expressions that allow them to thrive in that environment. Now, if you put, it's the same theory is if you put a black skinned person in a predominantly white skinned country like England or something, or Scandinavian country, they don't thrive as well because they can't receive as much vitamin D. Therefore, their immunity goes down. So that's why a lot of people got ill in the recent events that happened around the world that were predominantly from an ethnic minority community, because they're not in their natural situation. So their vitamin D status was most likely lower. So immune function was therefore low because they couldn't absorb as much through the skin because the sunlight's crap. So the same thing's true for everything. Comes down to what have we done over how long that will allow us to live, allow us to thrive, is based on what has happened more recently, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's, again, like, I'm just sort of trying to think it from like a modern day perspective of like how to introduce this to people who potentially have no idea. Like, going from a diet you're so used to then moving to more of a carnivore diet and how it would benefit you and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's just crazy to think of the benefits of it, but also like, would people do it? Like, this is the thing. Like, I know, like you said, you've helped a lot of people with it, and that's amazing to hear. But like, if you think about the average person, do you really think that they would consider it? Well, I hope they would.
Honestly, no. I think people would only consider it, one, if they were informed enough. So they sat down in a conversation like this, spoke to me for 2 hours straight. Because think of the things we went through today, last hour and a half roughly, we've been talking about this sort of thing. And we're probably just breaking the surface sort of things. Probably a lot more questions you probably have as a result of this conversation. But people will have to be desperate enough to try it. And not desperate as in vulnerable, but desperate because they need to do something that absolutely works.
Yeah.
So people will find a lot of their health conditions will improve if they do a fast. So they stop sweeting stuff and just drink water for a week.
Yeah.
Okay, your digestion will get better, your skin might get a bit better, you'll lose a bit of fat, things like that. But it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So to find a diet sustainable, you end up having to do something which is the bare bones, like you said, the basics of human nutrition, which is protein, animal fat. If someone was to start this in an absolute noob and they don't know what's going on, get rid of the seed oils. So if it says oil on it, don't eat it. That means every oil. Even some omega-3 oils, in some cases, they can sometimes be a little bit toxic, if that makes sense. They're not well tested sometimes. So you should eat solid fats, so butter, ghee, tallow, lard, things like that. Eat more animal food, ideally red meat if you can. Eat more eggs if you can tolerate them. Have some dairy if you can tolerate it. Then if you want to have a carbohydrate once a day after the gym because you think it's good for you, you can do, but I'd probably advise not to. I just try to keep as strict as possible. The more fat adapted someone gets, the better they start to feel because they're putting less potentially harmful things in their body. So like I said, the fitter, healthier, younger people will be fine for a few years, but what we're seeing is all those people that were fitter, healthier, younger decades ago are now unhealthy. So the diet isn't effective. It's not a good intervention.
Is there like, I know you were saying earlier about there being like an age range where you should really try and start this sort of diet. The younger the better, or does it really matter, sort of thing? To I don't know, someone who's 20 or someone who's 50. Like, could they both have similar sort of benefits from it?
Okay, so I'm gonna sound a bit elitist doing this. So this will surprise you. So I think people should be informed as young as physically possible. So they should know, okay, eat the animal protein first with the fat, then eat the other stuff. Have your dessert after that if you can have it. And if they continue to have that, good for them. They'll thrive. They'll feel great, whatever. Now, if they start to add in like the Snickers bars, Skittles, the ice cream, all this sort of stuff, and they start to feel worse, that's then their call, their discovery call. Okay, maybe I need to change something. Okay, or change this. I know what I should be doing. That's my default. So I want people to realize that the default setting is a carnivore diet, at least for the most part, for most people. Then beyond there, if they continue to damage their own health, that's Darwinism. That's evolution taking its course. That's the world saying, this gene pool is not meant to carry on. This person is stupid. They continue to let themselves be ill.
Is it
some people get ill and it's not their fault, granted, but I'm saying people that make themselves ill. So I'm on different Facebook groups online, like chronic fatigue, autism.
Yeah.
If you type in diet into any of them, they'll say, "Oh, I tried to eat lots of healthy grains and fiber." Okay, they're some of the worst things you could eat. With your diagnosis, that's one of the worst things you could eat.
Yeah.
And that's the standard of knowledge. My issue is I'm trying to establish a default standard of knowledge, but I'll never do that unless the younger people start cropping up. So in this carnivore nutrition space that we're talking about now,
Yeah.
I'm one of the youngest people in it. I'm literally probably one of the youngest 2 or 3 people in it.
Wow.
And there's probably, at least in terms of like YouTubers, Instagram people, whatever,
Yeah.
maybe 50 of us, I guess, maybe 100.
So it's
So
quite a new
people like
movement.
me, it's a very new movement, yes. So it was mostly started about maybe, I don't know, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, something like that, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So there was talks of people doing it online before, like on quiet, kind of hidden away message boards.
Yeah.
No one really knew what it was. They thought it was a bit weird, so no one really joined. But then it started to pick up a bit. It's like, oh, this person is no longer 20 stone; they're 10 stone. They're fit, healthy, and now they can achieve all these things. Oh, this is the diet that they did. You start to get all those anecdotes piling up and piling up.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier about the anecdotes, once they pile up enough, you have a hypothesis, a theory.
Yeah.
So now all we need is a study to prove it.
Yeah.
And in fact, we did have a study to prove it. Now, this was survey based, and it was done in Harvard, I think, 2 years ago. Basically, what it said was pretty much every disease state on anyone that was on the carnivore diet for at least 6 months was put into remission. Something like, don't quote me, something like 80 to 90% of the time. So, what drug out there, what dietary intervention out there right now, what exercise program out there right now will achieve that?
Wouldn't know. Wouldn't know. None.
Wouldn't come close.
Yeah.
If you have a headache, Jareth, and you take a paracetamol tablet, do you still have a headache afterwards?
Well, yeah, it just hides the effects, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
you want to hit the nail on the head first time. So that's kind of where I stand on it. So yeah.
That's cool. Like, I think it's nice that you have this perspective, because obviously we've been led along the lines of basic nutrition for so long, of eat a healthy, balanced diet, all this sort of stuff. And now these new studies are really being dived into a lot more. Like, it's nice to know that, like, you could probably work out where things are wrong just by reducing your different type of foods. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's what the carnivore diet sort of does. Like you said, it just makes everything as basic as possible, so you know what works and what doesn't work for you. Now, without going full carnivore, the tests you were saying about earlier are another way of finding this out. Yeah, because I know some people that have done it might be a microbiome test or something, but they find out what they're allergic to, and how to pull that out of their diet, or what they should pull out of your diet. Would you say that would be a good step to do first, is find out what your body doesn't respond well to through a paid test?
I think a lot of them can be useful, but a lot of them can be subject to your physical state at that time. So if someone very sick is doing that, I say don't bother with the test. Just phase into the carnivore diet gradually. Now, if someone isn't very sick, but they think, oh, maybe I might be a bit allergic to dairy, maybe eggs, we'll have a test. If you're white, the chances are about maybe 3/4 of you will tolerate it. If you're black, about 3/4 of you won't tolerate it.
Okay.
So that's kind of a demographic ballpark figure in terms of dairy. Now, eggs, about 1% of people are allergic to eggs, so that's more unlikely. Most of the allergenic foods exist in the plant kingdom. So you'll have to start pulling away from there first. So that'd be my first suggestion. I don't know the exact prevalence of each allergy and how often it happens in terms of each individual food, so I couldn't really say, but usually it's things like dairy, especially if you're black, stuff like that. So this can be found out for themselves. You can find it out online. So
do you have any like sources that people can go to be able to understand like where you've learned all this, or is this basically because you've been to university, because you've studied it, or that's where it came from, sort of thing? Or do you still research consistently?
So I research probably 1 to 2 hours a day, every day, if I can. Cool. So that's usually a case of like reading stuff, podcasts, listening to video, mechanistic stuff. Sometimes I'll work out pathophysiological things that happen in the body, so I'll watch a video on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I chat GPT, ask what Google says, sort of thing.
Well,
That's quite
ChatGPT
useful.
is hard because obviously hard, I mean, is in the way that like to trust, because
Trust,
it's a splicing mechanism. All it does is take elements and probably gives you what you want to hear.
That's
So
right. Yeah,
like, would you really trust that?
it's limited, but it's more useful for things which aren't contested.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So things that aren't a case of like political bias, things that are like, how does the cell wall function, for example?
Yeah.
Okay, you can Google that. There's not really much contention about that. We kind of know what's going on. But yeah, in terms of resources, we're looking at Professor Bart Kay
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube. We're looking
Yeah.
at Harry Sopanos on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're looking at Dr. Anthony Chafee on YouTube. We're looking at Dr. Sean Baker on YouTube.
Yeah.
Me, if you want anything to do with body composition, building strength, building muscle, that sort of thing.
So is your predominant, what you're trying to do with this carnivore diet, are you trying to make people healthier, or are you actually trying to almost like competition ready their bodies?
For the most part, it's get them healthier. Now, I've noticed there's a lot of misinformation in this community when I started getting involved in it. So before I had a YouTube channel 1 year, 1 day ago, I noticed that it was a bit weird. I didn't really know what was going on. People were saying things. I was like, I know that's not true. Why are they saying this? I was like, well, I better put money where my mouth is and actually contest that, make a video about it. It's not like to call people out, but just to sort of say, well, that's not quite right.
Yeah.
I started to notice more people had the same views as me, so I gravitated more towards them.
Okay.
So I've collaborated a lot with Professor Bart Kay that I've mentioned. So we make about 3 videos every single month for the last year, near enough.
That's cool.
We talk about stuff to do with training, exercise, nutrition.
Yeah.
A bit about health as well.
Yeah.
He explains things in a much better way than I do in most cases. So sometimes it
Do you
helps to have
feel
that.
like, because you have this higher level of knowledge, though, that it's almost unattainable by most people? Like you could potentially saying about things and people are just like, what? You know, like if you have no knowledge of something, would it potentially be easier or more beneficial to almost bring it down to a more basic level so people can understand it better? Because like some of the stuff you said to me today, I'm just like, whoa, that's fascinating. But at the same time, someone might go, but I don't understand why that happens. So would you say that like the carnivore diet and the people you're talking to are just so advanced that it's almost hard to listen to?
It can be, yeah. So there's different levels to people in the carnivore diet. The people listening to this or watching this can work out for themselves what level each person is at in terms of their academic experience, their people skills, their ability to teach people stuff.
Yeah.
There are different people out there that are a bit more select. So the people that I mentioned are people that I aspire to learn from, garner information from, collaborate with, that sort of thing. So they're probably all above my level, but they're people that I sort of speak to and think, well, they know what they're talking about. I want to learn what they know.
Yeah, definitely.
Now there are people out there as well on the flip side that are lower level, which explain the really basic, easy stuff. So there's plenty of choice. And overall, the community is very accepting. They're more helpful. So this is very different to a lot of other communities. So if you went to any carnivore Facebook group right now, YouTube channel, hi guys, my name is Jareth, whatever. I go to the gym. What should I eat before the gym? You'll get about 50 comments of people helping you, and they won't ask anything from you.
Yeah. It's
That's not very common. So
no, definitely not. I just, because obviously my main background or my group of people are people which potentially don't know too much or know a basic amount. They've done their sort of research and stuff. So I'm sort of trying to, like, for my personal audience, sort of think, okay, where do they start? How do they understand this better? How do they potentially get into this? Like, how will it work for them? Like, that's why I'm sort of asking these questions. Because like, I feel like if you understand it from that grassroots level, then you will want to do it more. If you're like, oh, a sciencey guy told me this, like you're just gonna go straight over your head, isn't it? That's sort
you want to be inspired. Ultimately, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you want to be inspired. Like, that's why you have to listen to the testimonies, anecdotes of people that have done it. So depending on who you ask, they'll have a different experience. So if I wanted to know about autism or bodybuilding, people would ask me. If I wanted to know about the origins of why plants are bad for you and anti-nutrients, you'd ask Dr. Anthony Chafee. If you wanted to know about blood tests, you'd go to Bar K. If you wanted to know about ancestral origins and what we used to eat and what tribes people eat, you go to Harry's Partner. So everyone has their own specific niche in a way, their own expertise, professionalism kind of thing. So it's very approachable, but I think the main thing is if people have objections to this, they're just listening to think, oh, this is a waste of time. Listen to people that are talking about it, what they're trying to sell you, and listen to some anecdotes online. You'd be quite surprised. And if you type in like carnivore diet, any disease, asthma. I've had asthma, not anymore.
Really?
So you do see what I mean? But it only comes back when I eat a non-carnivore diet for quite a long time. So
it's crazy.
You have to make that. You have to stop seeing it as a sacrifice ultimately, because the idea is like, oh, but I get to eat 20 foods versus like 5 to 10 foods.
Yeah,
well, okay,
I think that's the thing,
who cares?
We're very used to a huge selection.
Abundance.
Yeah, like I have so much choice. Like this is great. And as humans, as people, like we're always all about more progression. What can I have that's extra? Like how can I do this? And I think again, you just said it. We've done that with our diet. And if you look at the raw basics of it, like we're doing way too much. We're trying to eat way too many different things. And obviously, from the studies that you said, that shown the benefits, you personally felt the benefits. It's crazy to think that like this simplifying or making your diet more simple, it can cure a lot. And yeah, it's just really cool to think that like, this isn't another fad diet, and this is the massive thing that so many people come to me about. They're like, oh, the fruit diet. Like they're fad diets. People just try these things because they sound fun and they've been promoted well, sort of thing. Like this shit obviously works. And yeah, it's just really cool to hear that.
Yeah, honestly, people, like I said, search for any sort of disease online, you'll probably find some anecdote from someone about it.
Yeah.
Even the most like bizarre, weird diseases, I've heard all sorts of things. Yeah, I think people that have the biggest objections to this, if you're to sit here watching this and think, oh, I don't know about this, I can't do it, I'm not motivated enough. Well, sod it. Just have, say you have 3 meals a day, 2 meals carnivore, 1 meal not carnivore, done.
Yeah.
Just do a carb backloading or something. If that's achievable to you, it's a lot better. So that's why I look at it.
No, I definitely agree. Like this is the thing. This is what I was saying again. Like you got to work it in slowly. Like you can't just go full ham. Like people want changes like that. Again, this is why we brought up the steroids thing earlier. Like this is why people do go on fishing gear, because they you know what I mean? They just want the quick fix, but they don't understand. Like you still got to train. You still got to do all these bits. You still got to be consistent. And yeah, it's exactly the same with this. Like if you're stricter on your diet, you're going to make this progress. And yeah, it's just nice to hear one that actually, personally, I can actually believe in. Like, because you hear all these different things like, I was a vegan and I lost all this weight. Like, I'm not surprised. You're eating fuck all. Like, do you feel okay?
You're missing a whole food group, yeah.
Yeah, like
the thing is, you omit everything you need by doing that. So it's the opposite. You're doing the opposite your body's intended to do. That's the problem.
Yeah, and like you said, like you researched it, or there is research that shows that this diet it will work. We need it. Like we need meat in our diet, and yeah, like a lot of the arguments against it, sadly, they can be, they can be. You're right.
Yeah. It's the green screen behind me.
Oh, is it? Oh, you've actually got a proper green screen. I like it. I've got
a proper fold-up, retractable green screen behind me. Yeah, it's green and everything. And I've got a green screen chair as well.
Mate, have we got more questions that you wanted to go over today?
I can't remember. Did you have any more?
Mine are, again, a lot more basic. Things like, is there, how do you increase your food amount without having a big appetite, little things like that. Like, I don't know, say someone struggles to eat a lot of solid food. Like, is this diet really going to be beneficial for them? Because it is predominantly lots and lots and lots of solid food. Like, if they're trying to mass up and they're struggling, because a carnivore diet is, like you said, a lot of meat, a lot of protein. You're not going to be hungry as much. So how the hell do you grow if you can't eat as much?
Yes, good question. So, what I noticed when I've compared the diets is when when I'm consuming a mixed macronutrient diet, like whatever you'd have,
Yeah.
that'd amount to about 2.3 kilos of food per day.
Yep.
Now, my diet right now amounts to about 1 to 1.2 kilos, so it's about half.
Yeah.
So I'm actually eating less food than I used to in terms of like volume, size, weight.
Okay.
Now, protein and fat is very satiating. Yeah, that's completely right. So it's really good for losing fat.
Mm.
If you follow your appetite, chances are you'll probably get shredded out of your mind.
Mm.
Now, with a lot of people with this diet, they end up feeling full, but they feel full for much longer. So they end up
Okay.
consuming less meals. So the average person on this diet that I've spoken to is on 2 meals per day. Some
Wow.
less, some more. You know, it does happen, but it's generally about 2 meals per day.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, if you want to increase your food intake and you're
Mm.
struggling, you
Mm.
split it up further. So the more you bump that food up, the less likely you are to hit that satiety signal as hard. So when you
Okay.
don't hit that satiety signal as hard in
Yeah.
like one single go, it doesn't last for as long. So you can effectively eat more food throughout the day. We know this is true because people nowadays, compared to 50 years ago, eat 6 meals a day or 3 meals, 3 snacks versus 3 square meals per day, and they're fatter.
Yeah.
So their storage is higher.
Okay.
So they're eating more food spaced out, basically, more frequently.
So
So
you're
that's how I go about
saying
it.
on the pure meat diet, as if you wanted to increase your intake, you should split it up.
If you want to increase your intake, yeah, but I'd first have to address if the person was unwell at the start, if they've got some issues with their health.
Yeah.
Why is their digestion bad? Do they have faulty liver?
Yeah.
Have they had a recent liver test? So
Yeah.
it's always about exclusion and then doing what you need to do, and always applying the most simplest thing, I think.
Would you say this
Um,
diet is more aimed towards people with health issues, or this is a diet for everyone?
I think this is the ultimate diet for everyone, regardless
Okay.
of health status.
Yeah.
I think anything less than it is suboptimal.
Okay.
There's nothing missing in this diet which is available in other foods. People often bring about the topic of, you know, antioxidants, this plant extract. Well, the reality is we don't have a deficiency in antioxidants. We have too many oxidants. And
Okay.
those oxidants are coming from predominantly sugary foods.
Yeah.
So by default, all these things with antioxidants have sugar in them. So they're only barely, in most cases, probably not at all, counteracting the effects of oxidation that they would be occurring from the food themselves. So it's backwards world. Like you say, say, oh, an orange has loads of vitamin C. Yes, it has loads of sugar, which will glycate. They need vitamin C to help deoxidize or get rid of the oxidation from the intake of that food. So it's a backwards thinking world. So I'm not for it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, it's hard, isn't it? Because trying to get people out of the mindset of oranges, vegetables, whole grain rices, all this sort of stuff. Like, not that they're bad for you, but like an overabundance of it could potentially be causing these problems which you're finding. For someone who's like of relative health, or good health, they eat a normal diet. They're not making any progress with this normal diet, as in a balance of everything. Would you still push them towards the carnivore diet and be like, this is going to help you take that next step?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how unwell they are until they do it.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense. So someone can seemingly go to the gym 3-4 times a week, eat a relatively whole foods diet for the most part,
Yeah.
but their vision isn't that great, but they fall asleep easily, but
Yeah.
they're tired after meals sort of thing, but
Yeah.
they can't make it for a whole day, but they wake up in the middle of the night to pee. All these like subtle little things, which for most people they don't really care that much about, but until you notice that these things stop happening,
Yeah.
oh, I've just freed up an extra 20 minutes of my day because I'm not so anxious anymore.
Yeah.
That sort of like all this subtle stuff. I think that's what adds up.
I would love to go into
The
that
people,
a bit more.
yeah, we can do. Yeah, sure.
Like
Yeah,
personally, like the
yeah,
anxiety side of things. Oh, these days it's big, 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 big. Like, so many people are actually admitting or are understanding that they are anxious, and they don't know
yes.
how to counteract this. So they go and get anti-anxiety medication. What's what's the main one that people use? It starts with an S, I think.
Sertraline, citalopram.
Yeah, something like that. Like hearing people are on this stuff, I'm like, is that it? That your only option? Like, how can a carnivore diet help that?
That's a good question. Yeah, so I've spoken to personally at least 3 experts in that industry. So one was a neurosurgeon, one was a metabolic psychiatrist, and one was a physiology professor. So people that study disease, they understand how it works pretty well. They basically said the diet helps improve the mitochondrial functioning. So any illness that your body is having will be slowly get rid of. Because there's no sugar in your diet, you no longer have those swings and crashes where I know so many people that they have breakfast like say oats, protein powder, peanut butter, whatever. Then they're starving, hungry 3 hours later. Then they have lunch. Then they fall asleep at like 2 o'clock. They're knackered. I know so many people that like that. It's because their blood sugar's all over the place. It's not regulated, so they can't access their body fat when they need to access it between those bouts of or boluses of food when they're not eating or not feeding themselves, sort of thing. So I think it comes down to the main 2 things: so the mitochondrial function and, of course, the blood sugar roller coaster. So sorting that out, basically, I think is the biggest one for anxiety. I think as well, people that tend to follow the carnivore diet tend to become a bit more biohacky because they start to realize, okay, well, maybe I'm not meant to be staring at a screen at this time of night without blue blocking glasses on. They start to do more research. They start to sort of pick up on more things. And so what you notice is the people in this nutrition space, they're more concerned about their health than anyone else. Therefore, they try much harder to achieve their health outcomes. They realize how bad they felt before, and they've noticed that they changed it, so they want more and more and more. So these people are effectively pioneers in our space to start working people's health out and sorting them out, basically. So,
God, how amazing would that be if we could actually help people's anxiety just through their diet? Like, don't get me wrong, like there's so many people that find that the gym becomes a safe place, or fitness as a community becomes a really warm environment for them, and then they can go to something extra which gives them the social skills to be able to hopefully alleviate some of this anxiety. But knowing that you could potentially mix a diet in with that and it helps even more, like, that's huge. That's literally huge.
Yeah, people don't see that. There's something called the gut-brain axis. So what we feed your body is effectively what comes out. There's a better way to word it, but you get what I'm saying. So if you feed your body junk and it's not functioning optimally, so you're not running on a Ferrari engine, you're running on like a Fiat Punto or something, some crappy engine. Well, yeah, no wonder why. No wonder why, So your body's just not going to run that well. Just putting the right fuel in. And of course, I'm not saying it's going to alleviate anxiety for everyone, but it did for me. And I'm promoting it more to people now with different anxiety issues that come to me. I do get quite a few men, especially, that have this sort of issue that I speak to. And I'm saying to them, look, just be stricter, just for yourself. Like, you have, a 4-year-old daughter or something. You owe it to yourself and them to sort of feel good, be nicely represented around them, be a good sort of role model. So sometimes I tie other people into it as well if I can, but it's a tough line to cross. You don't want to seem a bit, pushy, but yeah.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, all of us want the easy option. Well, not all of us. Most of us want the easy option. Most of us want to be able to just go, I do that, that sorts that out. And literally, like, even just clearing it up in my own mind of thinking healthy gut, healthy brain, the axis, blah, blah, blah. Like, it makes complete sense. And it's being so overlooked.
I mean, do you eat oats, Jareth?
Sometimes, yeah. I'm not going to say I don't.
Do you eat pasta?
Yes. Yeah, I had a spaghetti bolognese for dinner tonight.
Any good?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, I like it. Put a bit of balsamic vinegar in the bottom, and they fry it up with some beef stock and so on. Like, it's decent. Yeah,
not bad. Yeah. So, was your pasta gluten free?
I'm going to say no.
Okay. What enzyme do you need to break down gluten?
I'm not actually sure. Is it
glutenase?
No. Oh, glutenase. That's it.
Yeah. So you don't produce much, if at all, any of that enzyme. So every time you consume these proteins that exist within plant foods, your body isn't equipped with enzymes to deal with them. So they effectively puncture small holes in the microvilli, the endothelial cell wall of your guts, basically.
Yeah.
So every time you do that, it's a weird way to think about it. So you're probably fine, like your body probably deals with it fine, but as you get older, your ability to resist disease and illness decreases.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd live forever. So what I'm saying is, you'll enjoy your pasta now, yeah, by all means do it, but eventually something may happen. You just have to accept that everything you eat that isn't pure in some kind of sense will probably have an impact, but it might not have it now. So at least I'm kind of thinking like now you've got this tool in your tool set to know, okay, like, this is an option. If I start to feel crap, I can do this as a reset sometimes and things like that.
Yeah, no, I after listening to all of this and everything you've said, like I'm super, super interested in to think that what this could change for myself and for my clients and so on, how to implement it and stuff like that. The main thing I'm thinking is, do we not naturally build resistance to these problems? Like, have over time, we've obviously been eating all of this compiled, all this stuff that's packaged and put all together, and put all together. Are we not growing any resistance to this? Can our body not like fight it, if that makes sense? Like, I understand reducing it all back and making sure that your diet is as carnivore as possible allows your body to work properly. But like, is there definitely no way that we've evolved to be more adaptive?
I understand. Yeah. So what you're talking about is called epigenetics. So gene expressions that do or don't happen as a result of your immediate environment or your most recent environment, ancestrally based on what your genetic heritage is.
Okay.
So, for example, someone that's been eating lots of grains, fruit, and vegetables and stuff, say, ancestrally for, say, the last 10,000 years, they might be able to tolerate it better than someone that hasn't been eating it from a different area of the world, sort of thing. So there is a global kind of element to it, like where you're from. Now, when it comes down to it, we're something like 99.99% genetically similar. So you'll have people here on this side which can't tolerate anything, people here that can tolerate everything, but we're the same, very similar at least.
Yeah.
So that tells me so we're only ever one step away from being seriously ill.
Yeah. So at least if you treat your gut with something that can't promote this illness, then you get rid of the problem.
Exactly it. Yeah. So it's a choice. Do people want to thrive or not? Comes down to what I said earlier. It's like the elitism kind of Darwinism argument. Like, it's up to you at the end of the day. Okay, like if I know someone, say they came to me and said, "Oh, I want to have children." Okay, why can't you have children? I'm overweight. Okay, you lose weight. Okay, I don't feel good, but I'm not overweight. Okay, look at your diet. Look at your lifestyle. Oh, my lifestyle's perfect. I'm really rich. I'm really happily married. I've got kids. Whatever. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, then you look at diet. Okay, are you eating the best diet? No. Then you change it. That's the most rational, logical decision to make.
Yeah, obviously.
So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. But
yeah, like you said, it's the way
you're fighting a lot,
Yeah, like you're fighting. Well, yeah, you're fighting against people which are potentially so used to living a certain way that you pretty much got to change their whole life, diet wise. And it's funny because people seem to be very open to do that to veganism, but not a meat-based diet. I don't get that.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think it's what we call something called appeal to authority. So the representation is online on media. Oh, plant-based, go plant-based is healthy. It's 1 or 5 a day. Now, when they say high protein, these high protein foods aren't often full of real like animal foods.
Yeah.
I know like yogurts are things like that, but like it'll be like high protein pasta.
Yeah.
Also, second rate food sources are an incomplete or incompatible amino acid profile. But they'll still say high protein in it. So it's given this justification for something that is good, which actually probably isn't. Now, what I'd like to see is for food manufacturers to start labeling anti-nutrient content and toxicity on foods. How many, I don't know, how many insects died to produce this food? How much pesticides were put on it to produce it? How many herbicides? How many slugs were killed?
Yeah.
How
That's
many human hair? How much human feces is in it? How much rat feces is in it?
yeah.
Hormones. This is
It's
more common in
tough.
the US, but
But then, well, that's the thing, isn't it? They're never gonna do that. Like the most advanced thing we have is like the traffic light system, really,
Hmm.
when it comes to people trying to understand.
and even that's wrong as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's your view on that? Like because obviously, again, bringing it down to a very basic level, but people just trying to understand the basics. Obviously, that's how you build them up. So when someone goes in and they see the traffic light system, like, how well does that really work?
It's not ideal. I mean, they do focus in some senses on like reducing sugar. So if it's green on sugar, it means it's probably not got a lot of sugar. It's not going to kill you.
Mm.
Orange is maybe not so bad. Be a bit careful. Red's like probably shouldn't eat this very often. Some of the issues of that is the saturated fat isn't contraindicated.
Mm-hmm.
Saturated fat is most cases animal fat. So it's like I said, it's butter, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's also the salt. How much salt should we have? The answer is how much salt you want.
Mm.
Like if you need to hydrate yourself, you consume salt and you consume water.
Mm-hmm.
Then a salt will allow your body to repartition the other minerals from the food that you take in as needed by the body.
Yep.
But I know more people that have issues from too low salt than too high salt. Now, the issue of
Wow.
too much salt is that you end up being more thirsty because your body has to find ways to excrete the excess salt.
Okay.
So in all cases, the best amount of salt to take in
Mm-hmm.
is what your appetite suggests. So if you're having that bolognese earlier, you think, oh, that's quite salty. Well, next time put less salt in it.
Yeah.
You'll find if it was too much salt, you'll be really thirsty tonight. Then you'll be pissing the bed all night. So
I
people just need to apply common sense.
No, I got you. Yeah, it's. I guess, yeah, again, it's little things I've just never really thought about personally. I'm guessing other people haven't as well. The subjects that you must have covered in the past, have they gone into much more detail about this sort of stuff, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I love it. It's just crazy, like just to think that like there's so many things that this could potentially help with, or even potentially even cure. Yeah, I love it. I love it. We've
Yeah, it's
covered
not
a
too
lot of
bad.
my questions as well. There was one about, it's not on the carnivore diet subject, it's more on about 0 calorie.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you wanted to go into that at all, but
just do it.
so obviously someone's basically put in like, okay, 0 calorie, is it sucralose, and what's the other one that they use to be able to make the flavors better?
Aspartame.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so I was listening to a podcast recently and it was saying something about a prolonged period of time of ingesting those products can cause fat retention. Like, is that even true? Like, do you know much about that?
Yeah, so there's two mechanisms that could come into it. So one is an impact to the gut microbiome.
Yeah.
The limitation of that is the only study we have on that, which is really any good,
Yeah.
I believe, is on mice.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't translate that well to humans. So whenever you have a rodent study of some kind, it does kind of work in a way. It gives you an idea.
Yeah.
And obviously the dose has to be in response to what be appropriate to a human being. I think it's like 10-1, but I could be completely wrong. So there's a dose amount in terms of scale in relation to weight sort of thing. Now, the other study that they have is based on the fact that any sweet taste that we have in our mouth will make us secrete more insulin.
Okay.
Now, if we secrete more insulin, but that insulin requirement is not fulfilled by a carbohydrate or glucose amount in our blood, means our body will end up dumping our blood sugar lower, which makes us slightly more likely to binge eat.
Okay.
But the difference in that is quite marginal. So we're talking maybe a 10% difference from baseline, I think. So something around that sort of level.
Yeah.
So every time you eat anything sweet, whether it be calorific or not, it will have some impact. Now, personally, based on what I know, what I've seen and what I've heard, I'd rather have someone have a serving of Pepsi Max than a serving of Pepsi full sugar cola.
Yeah.
Because we know Pepsi Max with sugar will rot your teeth. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
We know that it will provide you too much sugar in one go, so you're more likely to activate inflammatory pathways. We know that you're more likely to be inflamed, like I said. So there's more that we know. So I'm talking about what we know versus what we don't know. So optimal is going to be like water, or unflavored, unseasoned, whatever.
Yeah.
Then next best probably Pepsi Max, and the worst is going to be
water to
Coca-Cola,
Pepsi Max. I love that jump.
Yeah. Or
maybe throw some Skittles in there. Why not?
Yeah. Do you see what I mean? It's quite a tough one, but ultimately it comes down to the individual. If someone finds they're overeating because they're having Pepsi, then we'll stop having it.
Yeah.
It's individual. So some people I know adhere better to a diet if they have those things in. I prefer my diet with those things in, so the sugar-free stuff. I don't take the piss. I'm not having like 10 cans a day.
Yeah.
But I'm having one or two sometimes. And sometimes I won't have any for a few weeks or days. So.
Yeah, man. Would you say the carnivore diet makes you want to eat less like sweet foods? Someone says, "Oh, I got a sweet tooth." Like, I have to have something sweet, or after I've eaten my savory, I have to have my sweet. Like, would you say that the carnivore diet sort of reduces that, the want?
Yeah. So it comes back to what I said earlier about the gut microbiome and the 3-week kind of transition.
Yeah.
If you do it for 3 weeks, the chances are by the 4th week, you'll be craving sweet stuff a lot less.
Okay.
But the caveat to that is most people tend to undereat fat.
Mm-hmm.
There's limitations that people will always have in most cases because they're not used to eating so much fat, in that their body doesn't upregulate enzymes quick enough to deal with the fat that they're trying to take in. So again, goes back to the point, you transition in slowly, upregulate your metabolism to deal with the substrate at hand.
Yeah.
Then go from there. So yeah, it does help. And you find after a period of time, some sweet things taste too sweet. Another sense as well will change. So I hate the smell of fruit and vegetables now. I hate it.
Wow.
It smells really weird. Like it smells like chemicals. So your senses do change. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool. Because obviously when you're trying to, I don't know if you found it personally, but when you're trying to allow someone to change their diet, they crave what they used to have, sort of thing. And I guess again, we've said it loads, it's just all about being consistent. It's all about just getting through that tough part, potentially the illness as well that might come from there, and just keep going through it. These things are very common. And if someone's dealing with these problems, trying to transfer to a carnivore diet, there is help out there for
it. Yeah. People just need to take it easy. And there are groups online where you can ask people these sort of questions. You're not stuck. It's not such an obscure thing. When we started training, what do we have? We had the Flex magazines and each other in the gym. Or what do you do? I don't know, 3 sets of 10? It sounds about right. It sounds about an even sort of number.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do 2 sets of 8 or 4 sets of 20? Why do we have all these numbers in our head? We've just been regurgitating the same thing. So that's kind of what I think happens here. But the carnivore diet isn't a new thing. It's just been re-suggested recently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, more people are starting to collar on that some of this stuff that we're doing at the minute isn't working. So let's have a look at another way, and boom, in comes the carnivore carnivore style of diet. It's so cool to think that these things are out there that people aren't using to their benefit.
Yeah, I'd hope more people jump on board, to be honest. The reason why I started my channel, or one of the reasons, was because are you familiar with this guy?
Is that Flex Wheeler or
no? Not quite.
I can't. Sean Roden?
Not quite.
Tell me.
Cedric McMillan.
Oh no, I wasn't going to get that.
Yeah, so he died. Honestly, yeah. So I met him once or twice, and really nice bloke, and he stood for good principles, and he's kind of like an idol of mine. He died about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and that's one of the main reasons why I started my channel, because I was like, all these bodybuilders are dying, and they don't have to. And the obvious reason is they're becoming ill because they're living a lifestyle that isn't appropriate for them. They're trying to force something, and even he sort of said, well, yeah, for me to get this kind of shape, I had to really push a few buttons and pull a few levers, sort of thing. So I wanted to provide an option for other people to still build muscle and feel good, but not have so much stress in the system. A lot of bodybuilders look so aged nowadays. If you look at them in expos, the people you see on the magazines, guys, they don't look like that in real life.
No, They're
A lot of the time,
so
they're so old. They're so
yeah,
doctored as well. It's not real. So
yeah. A lot of my push as a coach is to make people understand that like what you're looking at is not real. What you want to be is not them or that. You are not that person, that thing, whatever they are, whatever they're doing, it will work completely differently for you. And this is a big subject where when bodybuilding really does advertise body dysmorphia, it really does advertise the promotion of people being very self-conscious and all this sort of stuff. And it's a shame because shaping your body to look that incredible, it's a craft. It's such an incredible craft, a dedication, and people can achieve really, really good results with the same dedication without worrying so much about how they look. And yeah, it's a hard thing. Like that's why I always think like mental strength, mental stability is one of the main things, and discipline is everything in this game.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I've taken perhaps like 7 or 8 days off in my training career ever, as in days that I probably wanted to train but didn't because I couldn't.
What
So
did you do during
I
COVID?
could. I trained outside, so I made my own equipment.
You made
So
it.
I found ways to make it or reuse things or
I bet
repackage
look
things
like
a
one of
certain
those
way.
Bali gyms where they've got the logs and yeah, they're just absolutely
I wish,
smacking
yeah.
some. Yeah, like yeah, I just went down. There's
I
a
had.
tree that fell down. Don't worry, Doris. I've got that tree. I'm gonna go lunge walk it back home.
So my stepdad built a side port, like a carport thing on the side of the house,
Yeah,
and he attached like some, I don't know, you call it, not wheels. Like, he rigged up like a cable system. So I had a low pulley and a high pulley,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
had a big bucket of weights that I chucked in and some cement or sand, I think, at one point.
yeah.
So I was using that to lift weights, basically doing super slow squats, one-legged squats, calf raises, dips, push-ups, just doing loads of it. But
I
yeah, I
love that.
maintained all my muscle in that time, so it just goes to show you'll find a way if you like it. So
Again, like you can always find a way. And when it comes to again losing weight, all this sort of stuff, you don't physically need the gym to be able to do that. And that's the funny part. You know, it is all diet. Or, you know, at least a lot of it is diet. You know, if you want to be able to tone and build your muscle and so on, then yeah, of course, you need to do some sort of physical exercise. But focusing on something like a diet that works, proven to work, for more than just, you know, very short period of time, you know, that's again where this carnivore diet sounds epic. I love that.
yeah, people won't know what they can achieve with it until they actually tried it. I think if you tried it, say you started next week, I think when the first week you drop about 5, 6, 7 pounds.
Yep.
Just inflammation.
Yep.
I think you probably feel a bit better in some ways, but some ways you might feel worse.
Mm-hmm.
But then eventually it kind of taper off and you'd be where you need to be, I think.
Yeah, like obviously from a personal point of view, like I feel healthy, I feel good, like I'm happy, I don't really feel like I have any anxiety issues, stuff like that. So if you're like me personally, changing my diet up would probably be just to try it, if that makes sense, like just to see what it could do. Like I'm not really training for anything like competition wise, or I just train for the love of it now. And I feel like the reason you would potentially change your diet is because you are literally trying to cure something. Like, would you say that's true? Or would you say that the carnivore diet is good for everyone?
I think it's good for everyone. Like I kind of said earlier, like you won't know how much better you'll feel until you've done it. You don't know what damage you're doing. So you might have a relatively sensible diet. You might actually be all right. You know, there's always going to be people like that. But
yeah,
I think if something did happen, you did become unwell, what's going to heal you the quickest? It's going to be this sort of diet.
yeah.
I just want to show you something quickly.
Please, yeah, crack on.
So this is one of my clients that checked in with me today. So I spoke to her on the phone.
Wow.
And she's done this in 6 weeks. So she's gone from like a BA belly to like much flatter.
I was gonna say, would you say a lot of the first picture, the left picture, is gas?
Probably a little bit of inflammation. I mean, she was on a carnivore diet initially there.
Yeah.
But she refined it back a bit and added some exercise.
Yeah.
She feels a bit better. She's a bit more well managed now.
Love it.
So yeah, like you can well, 6 weeks, and she's not done any cardio. She's
Yeah.
not on like 1,000 calories or anything like that. She's eating like a pretty sensible diet. She doesn't really feel hungry ever.
Yeah, whoever
That's
this
just
is
6
as well, like,
weeks.
well done. Like, that's so cool to see. Like, you've obviously been super like dedicated to it as well. Like, amazing.
Yeah, I mean, she does like 3 gym sessions a week or something. Well, like, I say gym, it's just 3 bodyweight workouts a week that I programmed for her. So
Cool.
she's still doing the same workout. She hasn't changed anything basically.
Yeah.
So she's just got incrementally better results. But yeah, I'm looking
Love it.
forward to that. But that's something that can be achieved. And this lady's like in her 50s now. So
Yeah, it just shows anyone
just
can do
wanted
it,
to
doesn't
point
it?
out.
That it
Yeah,
works.
6 weeks. So
Yeah, it's a big change. Do you have any numbers on like what actually went down or what went up? Like, do you have any like specific numbers?
I know she lost 1 bra size and she lost a jean size. I know that
In
much.
6 weeks.
Yes, and we're barely pulling any levers now. It's not like I'm not doing a lot for her to like lose loads of fat sort of thing. It's just I said like, let's just sort you out a bit and just do some work for a bit. Let's try not to stress too much or struggle, and that's where she's landed. So
yeah, like
yeah,
obviously you were saying a little bit earlier about how prevalent stress is when it comes to retaining weight, retaining fat mass. Obviously the carnivore diet can help again reduce those. Would you say if you are still getting just as stressed but you're on a carnivore diet, does it reduce like the impact?
Yes, it'll always mitigate some of the impact of stress, at least how you're able to deal with the symptomology of stress. But it won't eliminate everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I've noticed myself like things that, like I had my spine fused 9 months ago now. I had no anxiety going into the operation itself.
Yeah.
And I knew it was the second most painful surgery you could possibly have. I had no worry about that at all.
Jesus.
Because I knew that when I left the surgery, so when I left the hospital, I was under good hands, good family, loving partner, sort of things like that. And I knew I had the best diet I could possibly apply for myself to recover the best.
Yeah.
I knew all this stuff about exercise, physiology, training, repairing my body. So I knew what I had to do. So I had no anxiety.
Yeah.
I think it gives you a little bit of confidence as well. It's like, if you're eating anything you want, yeah, you know something could go wrong, so it gives you a bit of anxiety. Well, I shouldn't have done that. You don't have that on this diet. Because if you try and overeat, the thing is, your body will stop you overeating that much anyway in most cases.
Yeah, well,
So
like
you can't balls it up, really. See what I mean?
It's hard to eat that much because what you're eating is so nutritionally dense. Yeah, it's mental.
Yeah,
I love it.
pretty much. Right,
People
do you have any
are
more
asking if you're
questions?
watching the chat.
I'm watching the chat. I've watched it a few times, but I've not really brought up too much.
Is there anything that's popping out to you? I saw air fryer quite a few times. Love an air fryer.
Air fry. So Sophie bought a Ninja Creamy, and it honestly is the best thing for carnivore dieting. So raw milk, cream, eggs if you want, and whey protein powder. You can make this like fucking excellent ice cream.
I love that. I fucking
like
love that.
Unbelievably good ice. Like I'd say as good as McFlurry's. I'm not even joking. Like not horrible at all.
That's
then obviously it broke, so no more ice creams for me.
I was gonna say, have you actually? That's it. Like you've cut a lot of that stuff out. Like no more, never for you again.
I think it depends what I fancy having really. I like a meal out of family, so that's something which is a social thing, so it's a bit more acceptable. Like I don't feel as bad for having it. I think if I was at home and I wasn't around family, didn't see any friends or anything, I'd probably say I'm gonna make a big tub of carnivore ice cream. Or something like that. Or like I'll make these carnivore butter bites. So it's literally butter, cream, and whey protein. So that's the way of getting a lot of nutrition in.
Yeah, and it's like a really good alternative for someone who potentially, I don't know, craves chocolate.
Pretty much, yeah. So I can't tolerate chocolate anyway, but it's a good one for me. So I quite like it. And it satiates you better. So you know when you eat chocolate bar, I could eat a bit more. With that, you eat one of these things, you're like, no chance, I can't be asked. You don't, because it just hits that nutrient profile so quickly that you just don't want anymore.
Yeah. Like I think that's the thing with chocolate is that it's so little nutrition in there that your body craves the taste of it, the signals it gives to your brain, all this sort of stuff. It doesn't you don't actually want more. It's just your body's like, oh, this makes me feel good. and that's why you keep having more and more and more until you finish the bar and you go,
Yeah, there's certainly adaptive responses that we've acquired over evolution to tell us or make us kind of give us that signal to eat more food. So any time in history where we've had, well, I say the majority of our history, we've had sugar and fat in the same instance is recent years. Now, when we've done that in the past, where we had like maybe a few berries, that began to make us store a bit more fat. So we had the sugar and the fat at the same time. That's where, so I mentioned earlier about the calories in, calories out not being great, then mass balance model being better, so macro counting. There's another step to this, so it complicates things a bit more, which is frustrating, but that's the truth. So for completeness, I can't explain it. So there's something called the carbohydrate insulin model. So when we consume carbohydrates, we release more insulin, which is a storage hormone. It does other things, but that's what it's most known for. Now, when we consume too many carbohydrates, that storage hormone goes right up. So we end up disproportionately storing more fat on our body than muscle. So that's one of the issues with these like sugar fat combinations. They increase insulin and for too long. So we're more in storage mode. So that's what I kind of said earlier. I said like if you're gonna try like carb backloading sort of thing. So two carnivore meals, then one meal post workout with carbs maybe if you wanted to try it. So try not to have sugar and fat in the same instance if you can. So
and so for people who obviously don't know how to make these sorts of meals, is there anywhere like they can go? Is there any like websites that are really good for like meals, or is there any like like BBC Good Food has like loads of meals, but is there a specific carnivore diet one, or is it mainly like chat platforms?
It's mostly the chat platforms, but you can find like loads of Google guides and free ebooks and things quite easily. I've got to be honest, there's not many like interesting recipes you can make. I've made probably every recipe that is interesting on my channel already. So I've made anabolic protein shake, carnivore protein butter bites.
You put some tread in there, right?
Some Dynabol, yeah. No, but I did put creatine in there actually, to be fair. Yeah, swear to God, yeah. That's quite a good video.
Is it a bit of you?
It's all right.
Mate, you know me, I've tried to be as natural as you can possibly get. Like no creatine, as little whey protein as possible, like minimal supplements my whole entire training career. And like as soon as I go on creatine, it just my body just loves it.
Well, it depends how you work out as well. You work out pretty intense to a higher motor unit requirement fatigue kind of response, if that makes sense. So if you train hard, you're going to burn it out on you. So yeah, people like yourself, you probably benefit from it. Now, if you had a carnivore diet and you're eating, say, rather than eating chicken each day, you're eating mostly beef. You won't probably need to supplement, or you're less likely to anyway.
So, well, because you've got enough in your diet anyway, so you don't need to add that extra troop in, because obviously people go a bit crazy about these loading phases and all that stuff. Like,
it's nonsense. Yeah, it's been debunked quite a bit. I don't think it's going to make it's not going to be a game changer for many people, because most people don't train hard enough to need it or find it useful or have a requirement for it. That's the thing, really. So
you have to be training at a certain intensity to actually feel the difference. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah. So people that are working at, say, that explosive level of intensity, or at least trained to failure. So if you're doing 1 rep maxes, if you're trained to muscular failure where you can no longer lift the weight, you're shaking, then it's useful. If you're just going for walks each day, probably not. There's some studies to suggest that it's useful for cognition. So that's outside of training. So it is useful for cognition, apparently. They've been using that up to a dose of, I think, 10 grams per day. But, it's neither here nor there. You could try it out. It's usually cheap enough to try out. So,
is there any supplements you are like you have to take while you're on a carnivore diet?
Nothing on a carnivore diet, no. But I do notice that a lot of people will find a benefit from taking taurine. So that's an amino acid that regulates electrolytes in your body, helps reduce cramps, helps reduce left ventricular hypertrophy. It's an antioxidant, helps digestion, helps regulate pH balance from the gut.
Wow, that's cool.
It helps the autophagy or detox process in the body. Helps stimulate GABA. So it's something that most people could benefit from, and a lot of people could benefit from if they weren't on the carnivore diet.
Yeah, that's pretty cool
So
to know
I
as
rate
well.
it. Yeah.
But the only time you ever hear about it being in a product is in an energy drink.
Red Bull, yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, I've got my taurines. Yeah, I can't wait to go again. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy to think.
It works to mellow out the effect of caffeine effectively. That's why it's in there.
Okay. So,
Also, because the caffeine will make you liberate more electrolytes from your stores. Therefore, you end up needing something to help balance it out back in your body, so you don't, fall flat on your face when you're on the treadmill, sort of thing.
what is your take on like coffee, caffeine, cups of tea, all this sort of stuff? Like, as a carnivore diet, is it something you really should try and take out?
So most people keep it in because they don't notice difference if they have it or don't have it.
Okay.
But there is a portion of people where they say, I personally prefer to have it because it's my routine.
Hmm.
It's kind of like what we said earlier about, it's habits, so people just keep doing it. It's not the worst thing to have.
Yeah.
There's downsides to either one. So caffeine, coffee will have caffeine in it,
Hmm.
and a few plant compounds such as chlorogenic acids, which are technically poisons. But they'll be advertised as a health promoting detox agent for some reason.
Everyone loves a
But you have
detox.
enough in your body, then you won't be happy, sort of thing. So they will stimulate a false, non or unnatural cortisol response for your body.
Yeah.
So it'll make your body stressed, and your body has to counteract that with opposing hormones. So it's a stress to the body to take in caffeine. But then sometimes it's a useful tool. If you're very tired and you're just overworked, then and you have to do something, it's a useful tool then. Tea's not as stimulating. Sometimes it's good for sleep in some cases, but
Yeah.
one of the issues with tea is it has quite a lot of oxalates in it, so people tend to avoid that one if they can.
Yeah.
There's more coffee drinkers, I think. So
Yeah, definitely. Everyone says, oh, I just need a coffee. I think if you take that away from people when they're on a carnivore diet, you'd be signing off many, many people.
yeah, we've got the obligatory show us your guns from Nicole, who's a former fat girl.
Is it? What are we doing? We doing it?
You can do it. I'll do. Yeah, I'll do it.
You want to do it?
I'll do it.
All right. If I get cramped right now, I'm dying because I did arms earlier, and
Your arm's pretty good on that side.
Well,
The side closest to me is pretty good.
Wait, hold on. So I've
Wait.
got my peak on my right isn't too bad, and the left side.
That one's good. This side
Right.
here.
I'd say it's the distortion.
Yeah.
Just cut it out.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to like that sort of thing as well, it's so funny, isn't it? Because people are like, oh, I want arms like that, I want chest like that, I want this like that. Like it's like, dude, you are who you are. Like if you like, you would know more about this as well. Like you're gonna grow with what your genetics are. You know what I mean? Like if you've got a massive chest, your chest is gonna grow quickly. Like I know personally, my chest is terrible, so I've worked more on my anterior delts and all that sort of stuff to make it look bigger. Sort of thing. It is funny. Like I know we've gone completely off subject from the carnivore diet, but when it comes to aesthetics as well, I guess it's a big thing to point out that if you get your diet balanced and you get your brain in the right place of like, I don't want to look like that person, I just want to be the best version of myself, and then you keep the consistency, like boom, you're just winning.
Yeah, it'll only take you so far. I mean, I can look back at pictures of myself when I was like 14 years old, and I was like, yeah, I look pretty ripped and stuff. The same good body parts I had back then are the same good body parts I have now. Even I'm more symmetrical, but you can see, yeah, his biceps are pretty good, calves are pretty good, back's pretty good, sort of thing. So
that's like a freaking bang on, man.
Yeah. I don't have the chest or the shoulders really. They've not really come across yet. Triceps are awful.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, that's so funny how you say that, because there's so many people in this world that would look at your triceps and go, damn, they're huge. You know what I mean? Like our perception of ourselves is it's so bad. Like so many people have such a bad perception of themselves. And when you actually like physically accept yourself for who you are, and then you just go, right, I'm going to jump on a carnivore diet because I want to feel better. I want to feel better. Like even if you aren't happy with the way you feel or the way you look, like changing your diet, like has been shown that you can actually change your mindset or help with your mindset at least.
So I this might interest you. This might be the last topic we talk about tonight.
Yeah.
So I tried something which was a meat, fruit, and honey diet, and I tried that as an experiment.
Okay.
So my hypothesis was it'd be crap and I'd feel like shit. Turns out I was correct. So I tried it. So I matched out my calories. So I assumed the calories were the same.
Yeah.
So basically, got rid of a load of butter and put in loads of fruit and honey. Basically, kept everything else the same. I found within the first day I had really bad headaches. I couldn't sleep at night. My skin started to go dry.
Wow.
Then the 2 days beyond that, I just felt worse and worse. So I actually was planning to do a week, but I did 3 days in the end. I also gained body fat.
Really?
Yeah, so I measured, so I equated it. So I equated the calories. So that's why I say calories are shit. It doesn't take into account the carbohydrate insulin model.
Yeah.
So for me, it was horrible. But what's funny of me saying that? So although I was doing it with whole foods, I wasn't eating like junk food at all. It was just fruit, honey, and stuff like that. I think I'd have had better results, honestly. Going back to this again, if I just had Skittles instead.
Are we trying this? Are we trying a Skittles only diet? Day one, I've got a bowl of Skittles and full fat milk, and then
yeah. So fructose is processed in the body, in the liver, the same way that alcohol is.
Yeah.
And it produces byproducts just like alcohol. So it is effectively a toxin to the body. But we believe that
fructose can produce the same toxins as alcohol.
Yeah, obviously alcohol does it to a greater degree, but it does the same mechanism, basically. The same biochemistry is involved. And it isn't stored as muscle glycogen. So it means it's just circulating throughout your body. So you don't want anything running through your body that shouldn't be in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're just lurking and it's kind of like junk, basically. So it kind of like fragments your system, if you're going to say anything, really. That's kind of how it works. So that's why I say the Skittles, which have been, near enough pure glucose, would have been healthier because my body would be able to store the glucose as muscle glycogen. My training performance was worse as well.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it would be, but I was surprised by how much.
Yeah. What? Like just is this again though because your body wasn't used to the increased level of carbs? Like you were obviously on this carnivore diet, or you was on a different sort of diet, and your body's just like you said, like you didn't slowly implement it. You went bang straight in. Like, do you think you had a worse effects because you did that?
Yeah, that's I made the video. I think it's maybe a month or two old, but I did that deliberately. So I sort of said, this is what happens basically when you change your diet overnight. This is what happens when you eat fruit versus glucose. This is why fruit is worse. This is why calories don't really equate in terms of like body composition outcomes. So I disproved 3 things there, or I kind of explained or taught people 3 things there in one video. That took me 3 days worth of experimentation. So I achieved quite a lot there, I think, but I didn't get much credit for it. But I thought it was a fucking brilliant video. But yeah,
I think it's one of those things that once it catches on a little bit, like hopefully more people will try. Well, not try it, but maybe there'll be better studies on it. Like having a soul, your body, what you've done. It's unfair to say that would happen to everyone else.
Yeah, I think so. There is one guy out there called Dr. Paul Saladino, and he started off like me, like carnivore diet, and he's like, oh, I can't do it anymore for whatever reason. He said, I'm adding in fruit and honey, but now he eats like a lot of fruit. I'm talking like shitloads, like fucking loads, like 300-400 grams of carbs worth.
And he's healthy
just for fruit. He says he's healthy. But there's a lot of contention in our community at the moment because people don't really believe him, but they do. But what he offers people is more approachable.
Yeah,
you can eat these 5 foods, or you can eat his diet of 10 foods. It's more approachable. But in terms of long-term health, I think my diet would be better. That's what I kind of think.
Yeah, no, of course. And then obviously you're verging on the apple or cook a steak. Well, that's done. It's easy. Tastes nice. You know what I mean? I might not be feeling a steak tonight. Like it's again, it's a massive compromise, and I don't expect it to work for everyone because at the same time, I'm not saying it wouldn't work. Like, it wouldn't benefit them, but what I'm saying is like lifestyle wise, obviously all of this sort of stuff where people just don't feel like it's going to fit into their lifestyle. Like they won't even try it, and it's a shame because it seems like a lot of people are missing out.
Yeah, like what I said earlier, like if someone is saying they can't afford it, we can afford it.
Yeah.
I could make a diet for someone like an average low income family person's diet, which is about 30 quid, probably
Yeah.
about 35 quid at this point.
Yeah.
I could do that with beef mince and eggs and a block of cheese. I could do that easily, and that would be enough for the average, I don't know, 30-year-old man that weighs 80 kilos, whatever.
Yep.
So it is certainly possible. I think if time's an issue, I'd probably debate that. I'd probably dispute that, actually, because I spend 20 minutes a day cooking, maybe half an hour on a very busy day when I'm being intricate and trying to make some fancy stuff. Maybe it's half an hour some days, but
yeah,
half an hour in a day.
Going. It's maybe an
the
extra
ice cream's going.
Yeah. I love
Do you see what I mean? Then if someone's like, "Oh, I can't do it because of other things," I'm like, well, you need to change the other things. Then, if you're that unwell and you change everything else in your life and you've not changed your diet yet, that's the change you need to make. You need to commit yourself to change your life to allow that diet to happen.
I think that's a good point to end on.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. Excellent.
We've done 3 hours, and yeah, fair play to everyone who stuck around. That's fair play.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, brilliant. We're gonna head off now. Jareth and I might do a part 2 at some point on training, which would be quite cool.
Oh, I'd love
or extra nutrition questions.
That'll
be even more controversial.
Well, our training styles are completely different, so
we train different. Jareth does train hard. I must say, of all the people I've known, Jareth's in the top, personally, probably top 3 people. So my brother, obviously, my friend Brett, who's an IFBB pro, and Jareth, probably top 3. So there we go.
Just got to get that diet down now, and then maybe I'll be as big as you.
I don't know. I think you're bigger nowadays. I don't know.
We'll find out when we actually meet up and make a little video.
We'll find out. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Take care, guys. Cheers.
Thank you so much.